All right, let me say that, excuse me. Let me apologize for getting here a little tardy, but flipping from one meeting in Richmond Hill to one up here was a task, all right? The reason this meeting is called today is because of a request that the Board of Commissioners had placed on their agenda. And there were questions as to what the request was all about and why it was. And let me read what the request was. Request board approval of a resolution which grants consent and approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Garden City and the Chatham Area Transit changing the method of funding transit service by property owners within the Rosenau Hill area from a special tax, transit tax to a fee paid to Chatham Area Transit by the city from its general operation fund, and to further direct the tax commissioner not to levy the transit millage rate within the special tax district. Okay, in discussions we had with all entities concerned, because I think we discussed this with members from Garden City, and we discussed it with folks from Chatham Area Transit, all right? So I think you all need to, I will yield to commissioners first. You first, all right? Commissioner Kicklighter wants to be first, so that you will understand both the Garden City and the CAT board and CAT officials will understand what the confusion was, what the questioning was, okay? So we took it off the agenda until we could have this meeting. Commissioner Kicklighter.
Confusion kind of came from my recollection of what the original CAT charter says versus what's being requested here. It's my understanding that during the original charter, that it was very specific as to allow various cities to either opt in to the taxing district or opt out. And it would take state legislative changes to the charter, which takes state legislators to actually push that through to expand the service area or to expand the taxing area. Although y'all have worded this request as a service fee rather than a tax, just to put it bluntly, it appears like an end-around run to expand the service area and expand the district. Where cut and dry would have been, in my thoughts, to stay within the charter, would have been the mayor and council of Garden City asking the state of Georgia to change the charter to simply allow them to expand it throughout their entire city, rather than going about it this way, because this is, to me, in my understanding, just an end-around run towards expansion. And I also have a concern that if approved as worded, back when I was mayor of Garden City, we doubled the size of the city in 1999, I believe. And we took in the area where Salt Creek Road is, and all of Dean Forest Road, Highway 17, Chatham Parkway, and that basically almost doubled the population and doubled in land mass. But it's my understanding that Chatham Area Transit continued to tax that area once we took it into Garden City, and they did not relinquish like I originally thought when I was pushing for annexation. I thought that because they came into the city, that would come out. But those people have been taxed since 1999. So my wonder is if this is legal or whatever to do what you're doing, and I'm not even necessarily opposed if that's what the mayor and council of Garden City, that's their job for the expansion. I'm just worried about following the letter of the law for future expansion of Chatham Area Transit, where that's why they have the charter. And that's basically it. you know, if y'all can tell me something better legally, that's great, but if not, I think y'all are gonna need Garden City to request that, the state actually change the charter.
All right, let's go to, Mr. Manager, you want to speak? And then go to the CAT director, or the CAT director want to speak, and then go to you, how you answer Commissioner Kicklighter's concerns.
I'm glad to go first, Chairman. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here today, and thank you so much, Commissioner Kicklighter, for sharing your concern and giving us an opportunity to talk a little bit more about it. What I'm going to do is just sort of give a bit of history that lays out, supplements what you've said, but sort of lays out a little bit these most recent actions and the why and wherefore and so forth, and then turn it over to both the county's attorney, who was a party to this, and CAT's attorneys, for the real, because what you're asking are legal questions, and let them really be the experts on that as they are. And we would also ask, given our presentation here, if any questions, we could hold those until the attorneys and myself have completed the presentation, just to make sure everybody gets to hear clearly all the communication around the facts of the matter.
Doing presentation, sorry.
So Garden City requested additional stops and limited additional service in June of 2022. Now, that request had been pending for a bit. There had been some informal conversations, but there was actually a formal request. And between June of 2022 and August of 2022, CAT met with Chatham County and Garden City officials and staff coordinating on the IGA development. The CAT board was provided a draft in August of 2022. The IGA covered additional stops and a pretty limited service expansion, but additional stops that were desired, and the cost only was calculated and agreed to in an IGA that was approved by Garden City in a public meeting on September 19th, 2022, and then by the CAT board on October 25th of 2022. So there were months of deliberation and sharing of information and public information that was provided. Rose-Nye Hill raised concerns around this being a double taxation issue in early summer of 2023. And that was related to the transit tax district levy, and then the also using general funds to support transit. And the attorneys are going to talk more about that in their explanation. We notified the county manager in July of 2023 of the details of these matters and requested a meeting to discuss how we addressed and remedied the Garden City issues. A revised draft IGA that lays out all of these details is pending, awaiting the county's action to terminate transit tax collections in Rose-Nye Hill and to be replaced with the same amount of O&M budget contribution from Garden City. It's around $9,000, in case anyone's wondering about the amount. The remaining coordination of Garden City service costs will be part of continued management, as noted in the draft revised IGA. Related to this, and worth mentioning because of what you're laying out as sort of the underlying concern here, is Port Wentworth, because we have a service expansion in Port Wentworth that has also been funded through general fund contributions. Port Wentworth indicated in November of 2022 of their interest in CAT expansion, and over a period of 1 year until November of 2023, we continued discussion and analysis with the CAT board, City of Port Wentworth staff and officials, and coordination with the county manager. On September 28th, 2023, the City of Port Wentworth approved the expansion, and the CAT board approved it on November 21st, 2023. The IGA approach for this service expansion includes, again, a funding source that is general funds through the city's budget, with consideration of, we knew about the issue in Rose-Nye Hill now around the taxation of that district, and we made sure to look at that very carefully on the Port Wentworth side, and determined that there was a small portion of that route that passed through the International Trade Parkway Transit Tax District area, and so we made sure to deduct that so that there is no duplication of funding in that matter. I'll turn it over now to the county and CAT's attorneys for discussion of the legal basis and contractual matters related to these IGAs and in response to those legal fundamental questions that you posed, sir. Todd?
Maybe I should stand at the lectern.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for this opportunity. Commissioner Kicklighter, everything you said about the original CAT charter and the special service district and opportunity to opt out and all that was absolutely correct. That was all in the context of introduction of transit service and funding of transit service in the context of a special service district. The Constitution and statutes of Georgia provide for two methods for introduction and funding of transit service in a municipality. One, the special service district, which is what was done originally. The other method is by a direct intergovernmental agreement, IGA, between the municipality and CAT. That is what is being done here and has been done and is being done with Garden City and Port Wentworth. But I'll defer to Andrew Waldorf to tell you about the IGA side of that method of funding and introduction of transit service.
We're tag teaming here a little bit. Andrew Walkoff, CAD. Following on what Ty said, the existence of two mechanisms, two methods to provide transit service. There is a state code section, an OCGA code section. There's a state act called the Georgia Transit Authorities Act. OCGA 32-9-11 and the surrounding sections. That act provides that any transit agency, and I'm quoting, may, by contract with any local government for any period not exceeding 50 years, provide transit services or transit facilities for, to, or within that local government or between that local government and the area in which such transit agency provides transit services or facilities, and so on.
Can you read that last line again, the very last line?
Provide transit services or transit facilities for, to, or within that local government or between that local government and any area in which such transit agency provides transit services or transit facilities. And it continues. A neighboring code section describes the state policy to foster mass transit. It is declared to be the policy of the state to foster and to assure the development of mass rapid transit systems within the metropolitan areas of this state. So that act, that is the Georgia Transit Authorities Act, only requires a referendum when the services or facilities are to be funded by fees, assessments, or taxes levied and collected within a special district. So that refers back to the mechanism, Commissioner Kicklighter, that you referred to, which is CAT's original charter and doing it that way. In discussions among the lawyers for Garden City, for the county, Mr. Hart, and us, we all agreed that the other mechanism was viable, legal, and appropriate. As provided in our amended IGA with Garden City, it avoided any double taxation concern because the county agreed to forego collecting the transit tax for Rossignol Hill and the surrounding industrial areas.
But that's only if we pass this.
That is correct.
All right, so it has not passed because we took it off the agenda, so therefore it's not mute, right?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so now, are you still collecting that tax?
Well, we don't collect the tax. So
I understand that the tax commissioner does it, but the directions come from you, right? Or come from CAT or come from Garden City or someone.
It comes from the county.
Don't come from the county.
The count under the companion act to the to the Chatham Area Transit Act was another act which we refer to as the Chatham County Transit Act, and it provides primary responsibility and authority to provide transit within Chatham County lies in the Board of Commissioners of Chatham County. The Board of Commissioners of Chatham County set the boundaries of the tax district. They levy the tax, and the tax collector collects it. But it's collected for the county, and the county remits to CAT.
So then that makes Commissioner Kicklighter's statement true. That's a double tax there.
Well, no, that's the special district tax.
What about the area that we annexed, that I was talking about, the 5,000 people we took in 1999?
I have to say that I know nothing about there being any change in that area.
That should be excluded too. They're paying the same tax that the people in Roosevelt Hills paying, and there's like 5,000 of them.
But let me ask a question. When Chatham County Commission passed to make transit county-wide, does that not extend the special service district?
It extended the boundaries of the district, but as I understand it, the county chose not to levy the tax in that entire district, countywide.
Okay, so, but it expanded the district.
It expanded the boundaries of the district, it didn't expand the levy of the tax.
Okay, so now M&O funds, even though they're operating funds, those are taxes that are designated for operating.
Well, I don't know the various sources. I'm sure, obviously, ad valorem taxes are taxes that are used for M&O funds.
Right. So when you continue the section, it says that the contract may only be effective if it is approved by a majority of qualified voters in such local government by a special election that shall be called and conducted for the purpose of the election of that agreement, right?
And that is correct. And so that applies to the special service district. That is completely separate from an intergovernmental agreement, which is a separate method of funding.
Right. But if you extend the special service district boundaries, doesn't that kind of make it muddy?
It's kind of muddy, yes, but
That's why we here, because it's money.
It certainly is muddy because it's a convoluted legislation trail.
Right.
But-
So we went, as Dean said, around the qualified voters by doing the M&O to accept fees so that we wouldn't have to.
Well, that would be entirely a county matter, not CAT.
The county didn't pass anything to tell you to do that. Now, this was go back to what you wrote me, this was an agreement between CAT and Garden City. Then you sent it to the county for us to approve it, and we didn't approve anything.
No, you haven't. Garden City requested that it be sent before you. It actually is a intergovernmental agreement between CAT and Garden City, which is provided for about half a dozen ways in the various legislation. But Garden City requested that we send it before you so that we could resolve the issue of Rosenthal Hill, because Rosenthal Hill complained that their M&O, or that the city's M&O, which is partially at least, if not totally funded by ad valorem taxes, they were being taxed for that and for the special service district. And they thought that was not fair, and we thought they had a very good point. And they asked us to fix it. We were asked by Garden City and its administrative staff and their city attorney to fix it. Actually, the proposal of how to fix it came from the county attorney. We all agreed that that was the best solution, and that's the solution we chose, and everybody was in agreement. All this, what is before you now, is not to approve the original intergovernmental agreement between CAT and Garden City. It's to approve the amendment, which includes a provision that the county commission and the county will forego taxing Rosenthal Hill so that they're not double taxed.
Todd, one thing that.
All right, hold on. Let's hold it now. We do this. Come on, Commissioner Stone.
And I would ask, is what is being proposed, this fix, is this legal?
Yes.
Okay.
One thing I just wanted to add, the county commission did approve the first agreement with, the first IGA with Garden City on November the 4th.
That's right, I'm sorry. Yes,
I
thank
just
you.
wanted to be sure for clarity that
You
there
did approve
was
the initial
the
agreement.
first IGA was approved by the county commission.
You did approve the initial, this was just an amendment to fix the problem with Rosenthal Hill, which we thought was something that needed fixing. The county attorney thought it needed fixing, we thought it needed fixing. The city attorney of Garden City thought it needed fixing, and we all came to the same conclusion this was the way to fix it.
I would assume that the county commission would have been under the impression that they were simply just allowing different bus stops in the area, not actually expanding the taxing base when it was passed.
We did not expand the taxing base at all.
Well, the fee,
What- the
if you
fee
get a
is-
tax fee,
The fee is
it's
a
amount.
contract fee. It's like like chartering a bus. Garden City has chartered some buses, and they've agreed to jointly with CAT and the state to set up some additional stops.
Right, but Garden City is funded with property taxes, and they pay that fee with
Right.
property
And
taxes.
that's why Rosenthal Hill complained. Their ad valorem taxes were helping to pay for the additional service and the additional stops, but they were also still paying the special service district fee, which is a separate fee, and we agreed that they had a good point, and we agreed to fix it, to help them out.
You need to help the other 5,000 people out, too, if you're going to
I
go
was
this
not
route.
aware of I don't think any of us were aware of any other area that was being, quote, double
It's
taxed.
the area that the Garden City Hall sits on, all the way up to in Dean Forest Road, all the way to basically now Highway 80, all the way to Highway 17, all the way down past the school and all in the Salt Creek area. Then it juts behind the city of Savannah down Chatham Parkway to I-16. Then it goes over and takes in all of Chatham Parkway and industrial areas out there. That entire area
Doesn't it take in part of Ogeechee?
takes
Where
in part of.
Where it goes,
Yes.
off, yeah.
And if I understand, you say they are, the tax is being levied on those
Absolutely.
properties.
Yes, sir.
But you also have service, they also provide service because the bus stops are still there.
They still provide it to the area that they're taking off the tax base too. So if you're taking it off for one group, you take it off for the whole city. I mean, and
And when they met with us, and we will agree that it's muddy. And one of the things I suggested to the CAT director was because it was so muddy, the simplest thing would be to expand the district.
exactly, and that's the proper thing to do because it follows the original charter. The intent behind the original,
But didn't y'all do that when you expanded transit to the entire county?
no, we have no authority to actually expand that. It would take a change on the state level with the state legislators changing the charter.
Or a referendum for the municipality?
Can I get
Yes.
Assistant County Attorney to weigh in on that since Attorney Hart's not here? Because I think the attorneys on the county side, take a different view of that. So, Andre, you want to?
Yes, and what he was saying earlier was correct, that, in certain circumstances, it would take a referendum, but you can do it by the IGA as well. And so that's why we decided to go with the IGA option. And in speaking with the tax commission, she agreed that that would be the appropriate way to go with this, is to take out that community and just go with with the fee system. It's so that we don't create a situation of double taxation.
But we have part of Garden City that we already service.
Yes.
Over half.
Over half that we already service. So we're only going to stop levying taxes on a fourth of the half?
Well, essentially, yes, but I would, and I think the county attorney, and I'm not going to speak for him, but over the years, the county commission has expanded the district. So essentially, CAT district is countywide, and we only levy the tax on where we provide the service.
And that would be because we have no legal authority to collect the tax throughout an area that the state of Georgia has not included in the charter.
But I think, and Ty will,
I'm sorry, I have to differ. The entire authority to set the boundaries of the special district tax and to levy the tax resides in the county commission.
To change a charter, you have to have state approval, correct?
But I don't think you need to change the charter.
To change the enabling legislation, yes, but the enabling legislation says the county commission has the entire authority to set the boundaries of the special district, levy the tax within that district.
Y'all,
It does not.
no, but the commission sets the tax district, and the tax commissioner, off of your instruction, levies those taxes. half of Garden City is being taxed.
And that was because they allowed, with the original charter,
Yeah, but
they
the-
allowed the cities to opt in, and all the other little cities opted out. Garden City said, whoa, we want to opt out, but we have a certain area here that they need the service, they want the service.
That's true.
So they chose to opt in.
They opted in that portion, but the Chatham County Commission sets the tax district and determines who is taxed. So it's not you don't have to change it legislatively. You just have to decide what the tax base is.
It's done
We're
by
already taxed, they're already taxing
It's done
half
by-
of Garden
by
City.
County commissioners passing an ordinance. I think, Mr.
Yes,
Carter,
that's correct.
It's done by an ordinance, and if you look in your county code, you will find the ordinance that provides for the boundaries of the tax district and the
Okay,
levy of the
In
tax.
this case, this would work because Garden City has requested this.
Right.
But try that tactic on Pooler, Tybee, any area that does not want the service or want the tax, and I guarantee you're going to lose in court. Because the charter said they have to request the expansion,
We have absolutely no plans to go anywhere where we're not wanted.
because you couldn't.
We couldn't. And we're right, you're right, and we have no plans. I've heard nothing, we have heard nothing about Tybee or any other, or Pooler, wanting us.
So why not? Because the city, again, I have no problem doing what the city wants to do. They're the elected representatives, and they're the ones running it. But why not do it properly?
But if we're taxing half, why not opt in for the other half? And are we charging the same amount that we would receive from taxes levied? Because if we're taxing half and the city has approved half, why not opt in for the rest?
It's not half.
How much is it?
The corridor on 21 is taxed based on the businesses, not on the residents. So the amount of taxation that you're actually receiving by the millage is very small. That's why we had to expand the stops on Highway 21 by contract.
So,
But Mr. Chairman, I don't know if are we addressing this as an open forum, or are you addressing this as a podium?
Yeah. No, you can answer from where you sitting. We asking questions from where we sitting. You don't. The only reason I asked them to get up there because the director said it was more of a legal thing than it was anything else. So them being up there means that they can address both sides at the same time, right? But if you want to ask questions or you want to make statements from where you are, that's fine. All we're trying to do is and here's what I think adds more water to the dirt that makes more mud. Y'all keep flipping between tax and fee. See, and that tax and fee thing is a mess on top of a mess, with a mess, bring a mess, carry a mess. And so, what you sent to us, you asking about fees, and then later on you ask us to direct the tax commissioner to stop collecting the tax.
In Rosenall Hill and.
All right. So my question now, and I'm going back to, and listen, I refer to Commissioner Kicklighter because he was here. He knows about this stuff because he was the mayor when all right. The annex in Rosenall Hill, right? All right. So now, the bus goes down 21. On the north side, they're not getting taxed nor feed. On the left side, as I'm going out now, I'm going toward the airport. Rosenall Hill sits over there. 5 Mile Bend sits over there, right?
right,
Leon Village sits over. They tax.
yes.
That's what got us in confusion. Why you got one side, the south side of 21, if I got my directions right, tax, but the north side not.
How much of Garden City has been annexed into the city of Savannah?
Oh, you got to go back to 98?
To Savannah?
Yeah.
None.
None.
None in Savannah.
No.
Garden City's annexed unincorporated Chatham. When I was there, we doubled the size of the city, land-wise. And that whole area has not been included here.
So none of the additional neighborhoods or anything, none of those have been annexed over, and none of them they're all getting independent water.
Water, yeah, they're all on their own water.
Okay.
Yeah,
Water's
only
it.
Garden City's good water and
The water's a
good
different.
recreation, good all there. They're doing everything fine. I mean, and y'all do too. I just wanted to make sure this thing's done properly.
Yes, sir. I
And
understand.
it is, I mean, we can call it what we want, but it is an end-around run to expand a tax base, whether you want to call it a fee or a tax.
The Constitution of the state of Georgia don't prioritize the
And
method
again,
of doing this.
my job is to try to actually represent the interest of people needing to travel, which y'all do well, but also the taxpayers of the area and their desires. And again, I'm not as concerned about Garden City's request as the precedent it could set for future going around things when everybody might not agree in other areas. In other words, if you took this tactic and forced what you're saying onto Tybee Island or Bloomingdale or Pooler, it wouldn't work that way.
An IGA is a contract, and a contract requires two parties that agree. So in our view, this would only happen where municipality and CAT both desire to do it.
And let me provide a clarification about terminology. Chairman Ellis, you used the term fee, and that is actually not a correct term for this. I see what you're pointing to.
You're saying what I refer to. I'm referring to what you wrote when sent to me.
It's a matter of simple contract law, contract consideration. CAT is requested to provide the buses and the service. Garden City pays for it. It's a contract between the two of them to provide the service.
Wouldn't you say your job's to follow the charter also as the CAT board? To follow the CAT charter?
CAT charter and the companion act, the Chatham County Transit Act, were all in the context of a special service district. This is a completely separate way of introducing and providing transit service and funding it that the Georgia Constitution and the Georgia statutes provide for. You've got a choice. You can do it by special service district. You can do it by contract, by an IGA. In this case, part of Garden City was being levied or taxed within the district. Part of Garden City that was not in the district, was not receiving public transit, requested it. They requested that we provide it in an additional area that's not being taxed. We did that, but Rosendahl Hill got caught up in the middle of it. We recognized, at least Jim Gerard, the city attorney, recognized it, and others, the management of Garden City recognized it, and the citizens and taxpayers of Rosendahl Hill recognized it, and they requested that, look, we're paying ad valorem taxes that go into the M&O of Garden City that's being used to pay for this new service, but we're still paying the transit district tax. It shouldn't be taxed both ways. We'd like you to fix that. We originally thought about trying to remove Rosendahl Hill from the tax levy area. That was monkeying with a lot of things that could really get muddy. So we went to a straight contract between Garden City to provide it in the additional area by a separate method that is completely legal and provided for by the Georgia Constitution and the Georgia statutes.
Legal sometimes is different than proper.
Well,
There's plenty of things that's legal that's not necessarily the most ethical, and I don't blame the city of Garden City. They're trying to serve their citizens, but I do take issue to the group that's dedicated to upholding the charter, the original intent of the transit service itself. That is your job, Mr. Attorney, and there wouldn't be worded in that original charter that the citizens must vote before you expand this or that, and then some fee come around. That would be no different than we charge a fee for the unincorporated area residents to pick up their trash. Prior to that, it was paid for with taxes. But there's nothing in our original charter that told these folks, and I voted against it, that told them it was before us too. I mean, this group didn't change it. But if there was something in the original charter that prohibited us from performing a trash service and taxing the people unless they voted to approve it, if we just put the fee on them, that's an end-around run of a way to expand a service and a collection of monies. Call it whatever you want. And why not simply take this and do it the appropriate way? Have Garden City request that they expand their tax to everyone in their city, because currently they have everyone paying it except for one section. From Chatham Villa Drive all the way back out to 17. The whole city pays it, except for just that one little area on the north side of 21. And there's literally, that's the only area of Garden City not paying it. Everyone else in the entire city pays it.
But how do we get around 32-9-11 that says the contract has to be approved by the majority of qualified votes?
That is within the context of providing transit service and taxing for transit service within a special service district. This is a contract.
But this says a
It's separate.
contract.
Well, of course, you have to have a contract, but this is an IGA that the Georgia Constitution and statutes provide for a separate method of doing it that does not involve the referendum at all.
Was that passed after?
32-9-11 provides for that?
32-9-11, if that's is that the correct citation?
Yes.
Andrew? That provides for the referendum if you're going to introduce service into a municipality, and there's going to be a special service district and a special tax imposed for the funding of that transit service. In this case, there's no special service. It's a contract between the two parties.
Right, but-
Garden City and Chatham County, and Chatham Area Transit.
But Todd, when you started out discussing the contract, saying that it could, and you read off paragraph 4A, 4 and 5, to not exceed 50 years, the rest of the paragraph says that this contract that can be done to not exceed 50 years has to be approved by
And
qualified
that, you're
voters.
exactly right. This contract in that particular code section refers to this contract that is entered into as part of a special service district under the constitutional provisions that provide for special service districts. This is not that kind of contract. This is a completely separate kind of contract.
No, it says it could, I think I'm sorry. I am confused because it seems like we're using the language from the top half of the agreement to justify the IGA and leaving the bottom half of the code section to say that you don't need an IGA.
Read the language again from regard to the IGAs and the master.
32-9-11-B1, any transit agency may, by contract with any local government for any period not exceeding 50 years, provide transit services or transit facilities for, to, or within that local government or between that local government, any area in which such transit agency provides transit services or transit facilities, except that if such services or facilities are to be funded wholly or partially by fees, assessments, or taxes levied and collected within a special service district. And it goes on, such contract may only become effective if there's a referendum. So this is being done separate and apart from a special service district.
Was the state provision there passed after Chatham Area Transit was originally chartered? Because they went out of their way to make it where this couldn't happen in the charter.
No, it was amended. This was
That's what I'm
amended
saying,
in
is that
2018.
does the amendment that allows for the introduction of new services, when was it passed?
It was amended in 2018. I don't think the amendments had any effect on any of the issues we're dealing with at all.
Well, the amendment sounds to be
The act was brought to our attention by the county attorney's office.
I didn't ask you that. So was this amendment that's providing the legal avenue that you're saying that Chatham Area Transit has, it was passed in 2018?
No.
And when was it passed?
I don't remember the year it was passed, but it was well before then. Chatham Area Transit was incorporated under its charter in 1986 and commenced on January the 9th, 1987. The companion act that was passed by the General Assembly at the same time, the Chatham County Transit Act, is the one that provides that the Chatham County Commission is primarily responsible for providing, Chatham County is primarily responsible for providing transit service within Chatham County, and that it has the entire authority to set the boundaries and levy the tax within the special service district. And they may do so by ordinance. That's what the county did. You referred several times to the charter. The charter was Cat's charter. All the charter did was create the Chatham Area Transit Authority. The Chatham County Transit Act says that Chatham County Commissioners may enter into a contract with a transit authority to provide this service, and that's exactly what you did.
That part doesn't matter. That's the intent behind Chatham Area Transit and that charter. And the reason the cities took such care to ensure that it was spelled out would be where something like this couldn't happen. And again, I don't fault y'all whatsoever. You're doing what your people want you to do. That's what we're supposed to do in government. But again, my fear lies in the future. If an overzealous Chatham Area Transit Board tries to follow this precedent and just force it over to other cities and all, and it can't happen.
If we
And I
were,
don't think-
if
I
we
don't
were
think
to
we-
try to force this on other cities, which we would never do, we're never going to go where we're not asked to come in or invited. If we were to try to force it, what it requires is a contract. Contract requires two parties. The municipality would have to agree and enter into the contract.
Exactly, but that wasn't the original charter.
Does the CAT Act make any mention of the other state legislation that allows for a government to be able to purchase transit from an agency? So it kind of seems to me that perhaps when the CAT Act was developed back in the 80s, that the state assembly perhaps didn't take into account the fact that there were two mechanisms for a municipality to be able to have transit service. Because here in Chatham County, it sounds like we've got the CAT Act, but then also there was floating around in the General Assembly Code, the other legislation.
Right, and of course
and they don't talk about each other at all.
Right, well, the Chatham Area Transit Authority Act and the Chatham County Transit Act, which were passed in 1986, they were not considered and passed by the entire General Assembly. That was local legislation done by the local delegation.
So, I mean, we're talking about some legislation that was written 40 years ago, and things have changed tremendously, not just demographically, but also what's going on in the county and beyond the county. I mean, it kind of seems that with the people in this room, and if there's enough persuasion to do so, finding ways to make sure that a zealous CAT board doesn't take transit to places where it's not wanted, but also does have the flexibility to be able to provide transit where it's needed without having to do it in an entire municipality all at once, could be really helpful.
And we
We're
don't,
hitting the bounds of what we've got in the CAT Act.
sometimes you have to, you might get get something other than what you asked for. If we were to do some sort of food basket turnover of the legislation, the people of Garden City who want the service might somehow get erased off the transit map.
Attorney Pretorius, I'm curious as to the boundaries of the special service district. When the county commission said they were going to expand transit countywide, how did that affect the special service district boundaries?
Same.
It did not at all?
Two separate special service districts. You got the CAT Special Service District, and you got the County Special Service District. So they're two separate taxing districts.
Okay, so was it necessary for the county to pass that transit would be extended countywide?
That was Chairman Scott's wish.
I know, but was it necessary?
No, it wasn't necessary, but that was his wish, and that was what the commission approved.
So it had no impact it was perfunctory.
Sounded cool.
I would not say that. And I'm sorry that Attorney Hart is not here because he takes a different view of that. In his opinion, and it's been our opinion, that the county commission is the only one that can levy the tax. They're the only ones that set the district because they're the only ones that levy the millage.
Okay.
CAT board didn't have that discretion.
Okay, so when they passed it, what did that do?
It extended the boundaries countywide, but at the time, the county commission only wanted to levy the tax in areas that were actually providing the service.
To provide, to expand on that. If you have to narrow it down to what did it accomplish, what did it do? It expanded the boundaries of the special service district, but it did not expand the levy of the tax. That's a separate issue that is left up to the discretion of the county commission.
Right, but you just said it expanded the boundaries of the special service district.
Which means it expanded the district within which they could levy the tax. It didn't say they had to levy the tax.
But it expanded the boundaries of the special service district.
Special service district.
Yeah.
Yes.
The county can have a special service district. The county commissioners can make a special service district for anything.
We have
Right.
fire now.
And, yeah. fire,
So-
that one.
So when he expanded the special service district, he did not include expanding the CAT service district.
They did not, because they did not want to provide service in that district.
I'm confused.
Additional service in that district.
We are too.
I can.
We can't have it both ways.
Yeah, but you do right here.
But how?
You've got some people in Garden City still being taxed.
No, before we get to Garden City, I just want to talk about the expansion of the service district.
Okay.
So when the district was expanded, it did not expand the CAT district.
I think it did.
Yeah.
That was the same thing.
It did.
If they provided service.
The special service district for transit is the CAT.
But if it expanded the district and now we plan to provide service, doesn't that muddy whether or not it can be an IGA or not? If it expanded the service district to areas that we are providing services,
Well, we would have to look back at the commission vote, but as I understand it, they expanded the district countywide, which gave the county commission the ability to tax, but they only. Countywide, but they only are taxing the properties where they provide service.
which is what we're trying to do. Provide service without levying the tax when we expanded the special service district. So if the special service district was expanded to levy taxes once services are provided, isn't that what we do?
Part of Garden City was not being taxed, and part of Garden City was being taxed, when all of them should have been being taxed.
That's where I'm at.
I know, that's what I'm telling, that's what we saying over here. But let me, Mr. Manager, you don't wanna chime in on this?
I'm just watching the legal deposition unfold.
You saying you let the lawyers fighting it out?
Well, there seems to be some side issues going on here that, probably need to be discussed at a later time.
I think you gotta clear up what the special service district is.
Well, it's for, some of that was for paratransit, because paratransit is a countywide service. And the county has a contract with CAT to provide paratransit service countywide.
And they can provide that service within a 3-mile boundaries of a fixed route, right?
We provide it
I
countywide.
know that.
Paid out of M&O too, right?
But doesn't it, yeah, it comes out in, but doesn't it have restrictions from the feds about the 3 miles? Three-quarters of a mile? Okay, I know it was 3 something.
We're required to provide it within that
Yeah.
area, but we can provide it outside that area, and we do.
I will tell you, and I think I've got it right, Mr. Glider. There was a point at which, when the commission was deliberating, providing paratransit service, you had a problem, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth then or now, but you had a problem with the fact that the county was not going to be providing paratransit service to anybody in the county that needed it. And there was an opportunity for the county commission to pay for that service to be door-to-door anywhere in the county. We were restricted by FTA rules and regulations, but you thought, and you won the minds and hearts and minds of everybody else on the commission at the time, that the county ought to pay for it to be countywide everywhere in the county and not within 3/4 of a mile of a stop. And that's how
You're partially correct. The reason I was upset was it was always funded through the M&O portion of the budget and was intended to be countywide. But in a tact to, for whatever reason at the time, maybe I ticked off the wrong people, They said they were going to take it down and just follow the federal guidelines and just service 3 miles out. And yes, I raised quite a bit of cane, and thankfully, they saw that since it's funded by the entire county, it should be available, and they did follow through on that.
And I'm sure there are a lot of grateful people out there that you've pressed that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that's definitely needed, and people, when they purchase a home in our county, they need to be aware of where they're purchasing, what's available, and, you know, when they purchased before, that would have been available, so it would not be right to take that service away.
But 2 times the county commission approached countywide services for CAT, in 2012 and again like 2016, 2017. Both times we pressed for countywide services of transportation. I think it expands the district. If it doesn't, I'd like, you know, an explanation as to why it does not.
It's a 2-step process that you can, the county commission can expand it, and they did, at least ostensibly they did, to the entire county.
But isn't it triggered by
The second step
services?
is they've got to choose to levy the tax. And they levied the tax only in the areas where the service was being provided.
But the levy of the taxes is triggered by service provided, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. And are we not trying to provide service?
We are, because we don't have a choice by contract. That's really the totality of why I'm here.
Oh, I understand the contract.
Hold on.
But it doesn't negate the service.
Let him complete his.
The reason that we had to expand the service on 21 by contract is because we needed additional services. Now, what's missing in this conversation, and I don't want to represent Fay here, is it also has to make economic sense for Chatham Transit, okay? They don't just add stops to go into a deficit, and I'm not representing her, but that's what the contract represented. We needed expanded service, but it also had to make financial sense for CAT, which is why we entered into a contract. I needed the service, they needed the revenue, okay? So as far as Garden City is concerned, we totally support a countywide levy of the CAT tax. We'd be happy to be a part of that. But until then, the only option we have is to go about it via contract, which is a legal vehicle. It's not something that we want to do, but it's something that we need to do. And so I would ask you to act based on what you passed in 2017 and expand the service countywide. We know you can do it because you've already done it once with the additional 6 stops that we added on 21. That was passed by the county commission. That happened last year. So we know that what we're asking for is possible. We're talking about not taxing Rosenau Hill, and I know that's a separate matter than them actually opting out. But Rosenau Hill is a little bit different because it's the most socio-economically depressed area of Garden City. They opted in by petition, okay? Of all people who can't afford to pay the CAT tax, it's this neighborhood. And so the city council has recognized an opportunity to exempt them from a tax that they likely can't afford, and a majority of their riders don't even use, and that's via contract. So I would ask that you all consider expanding the countywide tax for Chatham Area Transit, but until then, this is going to become the norm, which I believe, and I'm not speaking for Port Wentworth, is why they're pursuing the same. So that's our perspective.
As a representative of someone that used to represent 5 different cities before my area kept growing and I keep losing cities, and I'm down to basically 2 now, or 3. Each city, via the original charter, has the option to expand their service and their tax base by them requesting the changes. And like you read, voting or whatever, but each should just maintain that right. Y'all should be able to request that you expand the tax base to include your entire city, and so be it, and get it through that way. Every other city should be able to do that, but one city shouldn't be able to request a expansion county-wide, force the others that still may not want the service or whatever. It was structured that way for a reason, whether it was right or wrong. And
I'm not trying to do that. It sounds like they're just trying to expand it in their own jurisdiction.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. But the last comment about he wanted it countywide, I'm saying, I get it. They need to be able to do their city, but not opt others in. And I will tell y'all, history-wise, prior, even to this day, there's plenty of areas of Chatham County that pays the Chatham Area Transit Tax that receives no service. They talk about wanting to serve Tybee Island. Chatham County unincorporated is right there at the island. Bus could stop right there and go back and forth every day and carry people today. But it makes undoubtedly no financial sense. I used to hear this all the time because like you said, they've tried to expand at different times throughout the years that I've been here. And in the meantime, they had areas saying, oh, we got to get people to jobs. We have to get people to jobs. I pointed out way back at that time that we were running no bus service to anything out by the airport, all of those huge industrial warehouses, all of that major business. We had no service going to those areas, although it was well within the city of Savannah's city limits and in that tax base. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say in the past that Chatham Area Transit in the past has necessarily been so excited about expanding its service area as they once were about expanding their taxing area. I attended a meeting with the CAT administrators several years ago with the mayors of the various cities that were not participating. And Chatham Area Transit staff asked the cities, we want to expand the service, we need to expand this, the tax base. And one of the mayors simply said, show us your plan. How would you service? There was no plan. So basically they invited them all over to ask, can we tax you?
If I may, we've really come a long way. And
I know that, and I don't.
Absolutely invite you.
I can only speak of the past, and then even before I was in office, the intent was to protect, because I've been here long enough, I've watched people come and watched people go. There's good, there's bad, there's in between, and I don't question any of your motives. I'm sure you're doing exactly what you believe is the right thing to do, and so on. But the thing was chartered originally a certain way, and all I'm asking is that we follow the intent behind the original agreement. And that would be Garden City simply requesting to expand it if that's what they choose to do. And this current one, it's totally flawed, this request, because over half of the city is left out of this and not gonna, apparently they'll have to keep paying while the other people would get to stop. And then that would basically be Rosenau Hill area, and the oldest section of Garden City would no longer be paying, but the other half of the entire city would have to pay. And so if you continue through this, my recommendation would be to make sure you at least do it equally for the entire city. I mean, that would have to increase the fee because they wouldn't be getting to offset it, but it's the right thing to do. And the area I'm talking about annexed, it's not high-end by any means. There's several mobile home parks up and down Dean Forest Road that's included in there. So I'm sure they're financially more capable, and that would be included in their landlord's fees, I'm sure, that would be then reduced.
We did this, and I think Ms. Cutter did this, perhaps Faye. We actually, not me, CAT staff, got together with the tax assessor, and they went parcel by parcel over the entire district within Garden City. And I can tell you, I think without being contradicted, that none of us had any idea that there was another area within Garden City that was paying the tax and would have been hit by this so-called double taxation.
So then we can see why I had concerns. I saw that half of the city was being overlooked at this point.
There's also parcels, and we discussed this, we did the same parcel by parcel analysis with Port Wentworth as well. But there are parcels that are exempted because of tax abatements that have been given for economic development purposes and so forth. So there's also some distinctiveness there in terms of those collections and so forth. they're properly there, but they're there nonetheless. And so there's a lot of detail to this that we went into to make sure that we knew, all the facts as they are. So I hope that.
Well, I mean, I understand your intent was good, but the result was not. I mean, y'all left out half of your city.
Even if there's a part of them that's getting tax abatement, you're talking about industry. You're not talking about residents. Residents not getting tax
That's
abatement.
correct, sir.
All right, so you're not,
We
when
just
you
looked
say,
at
when
it
you
on
say
a
part
parcel
of them
by
getting tax,
parcel.
but here's my concern now. You raise a concern, Ty, and you raise concern what you said, okay? If still, we pass this for Rosenau Hill, there's still some folks out there, and Dean mentioned it, in trailers and things, that's gonna still be getting the tax, right? They're still gonna be getting double tax. So if we gonna do it for one, let's do it for all one time rather than going piece by piece, bit by bit, because they're in your jurisdiction. They're in Garden City, right? The mobile homes that he's talking about are in Garden City. So if they still paying the tax, we relieve Rosenau Hill based upon what you sent me in front of me. You still got them out there who gonna be double taxed. So if you're gonna do one, let's do them all, rather than trying to piecemeal. And now you understand, I hope everybody in here understand why the confusion was in the commission meeting. And I couldn't answer. So I said, let's get the people who could answer, because I couldn't answer, all right? But I am concerned about us taxing some double and taxing others not at all, and then taxing some singly. That's where the mud is. And we have the ability to clean up the mud if we're gonna do it, if your request to us is to clear it up for Rosenau Hill, right? But since you already did that with the taxes, assessors and thing, let's get the rest of them.
We haven't done anything.
I'm talking about in Garden City.
We haven't done anything with the tax assessor's office. That direction would have to come from the county.
But didn't you say you all
No, we just looked at the parcel.
parcels by parcels with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so therefore you should know economically, just like he said, Rosenau Hill is one of the poorest, all right? You should know how it fits them economically as well, right? You can do that. You can do that by the taxes and the property value.
He's already said that if they were to levy that tax in that area, it still wouldn't cover the cost.
So then they need to find out how they're gonna cover the cost.
They would still have to come out of their
Double
M&O.
taxing people.
They would still have to come out of their M&O and still come to us.
Right. But
Not as much.
we concerned with three things. There's some we get not taxed at all in the same jurisdiction of Garden City. There's some people getting taxed singly, then there's somebody who's getting taxed doubly. So if we're gonna do it for part of Garden City, we only talking about Garden City now. When we talk, maybe another meeting or something, we'll talk about Port Wentworth or somebody else, all right? But I'm dealing with what's in front of me now is Garden City, okay? So if we're going to stop the double taxing in one area, we need to stop it in all the areas. You see, bring that back before us so that we know, since they say that it has to come from the county commission. And I'm almost sure, unless I'm not reading y'all right, and I was looking at facial expressions, trying to read you now. This is confusing. All right, and the confusion is single tax, no tax, double
I
tax.
don't know that there's any property owner that has no tax within Garden City.
No, I'm talking about the tax that we talking about here.
But
Oh.
the commission only levies the tax with regard to the special service district. The so-called double taxation, which is really a misnomer, but the so-called double taxation, it comes from Garden City's ad valorem taxes, which they use to fund their M&O. And there may be some instances of tax abatement, but I assume you have uniformity of taxation within Garden City so that you don't tax one area or one neighborhood at a different rate than in other areas. They're all taxed.
So what would be the double tax? Are we saying the ad valorem tax is one, which is funding Garden City's M&O, and then the cat tax is another? And you're saying that there are specific areas within Garden City that are paying the cat tax?
They're saying, I'm just quoting what they're telling me.
No, I'm just trying to get clear. It seems like at the end of the day, the goal is to provide service to a certain area. And if they were to tax it and that taxing wouldn't cover the cost, then we still end up here with just a smaller number that is gonna have to be raised in fees out of the M&O.
We're not here for the M&O. We're just here for Rossignol Hill.
But that's gonna be paid for out of their M&O.
It is out of theirs.
So if the-
But
you're
y'all
saying
don't
if
have
the-
to approve that.
That's in the IGA.
We tax residents in Garden City 1.15 mils for transit tax, but that doesn't make economic sense for CAT to be able to provide service, then Garden City could do an IGA with CAT, like what we're looking at today, but at a lower amount, to make it work for CAT, and then provide service.
You only have to approve not taxing the CAT tax on Rossignol Hill.
Correct.
Right. Chatham County does not have to approve the M&O from Garden City. Their board approves that.
Right.
But, so,
The only
the
reason
double
Chatham-
tax is only one area.
Rosenau Hill.
He's got
And
more than one.
Salt
He's saying
Creek
more.
area.
He's talking about more
Salt
than one.
Creek, but Salt Creek is not, Salt Creek is doing double tax.
That's what he said.
Yeah, Salt Creek is double tax.
Like 5,000 people.
Yeah.
First I've heard of Salt Creek.
I don't want to come out of this meeting losing ground, okay? So that's not the purpose. I will say that I believe unquestionably the actions that we took on the corridor to add the 6 stops are permissive and totally legal because of the amount of tax being collected in that corridor on the commercial district. However, I do understand your concerns now, and I will tell you, as a matter of fact, I cannot represent to anyone in this room that the Garden City General Fund would be able to support paying for CAT service throughout the city. And so if that's going to be the requirement that we agree to studying that or coming back to you, I can tell you that that's something that we can't do. And so if your approval is going to be contingent on that, or it's going to remain in action, then I assume that this Rossignol Hill initiative would have to fail.
This was simply an attempt to provide relief to Rossignol Hill.
Okay, if it was already in the taxing district, okay, I know you said from the original taxing district. If this request, if they said, we need service, more service, oh, it costs so much more. Garden City says, we want to pay you. That's fair, because that was the original service area. Expanding outside the original service area that was taxed is going around the intent of Chatham Area Transit's charter. It was created that way not to amuse people. It was created that way to protect people, protect the taxpayers in the areas that they chose to leave out of the Chatham Area Transit Service District.
But is Salt Creek being serviced?
Yes, they get serviced, but.
Just like Rossignol Hill?
Yes, but right up until my understanding, when I was mayor and pushed for this, was I even sold it to them that, hey, you'll be in Garden City. You'll no longer have the tax district. You'll no longer have to pay. And then I found out right before the votes that basically, Chatham County said, they're going to have to keep paying. So they keep paying, and there might be one stop somewhere along that area, but that's pretty much it. But they all still pay the Chatham Area Transit tax.
But based on.
Silcope has one, and there might be another one down, but it's not like, an abundance of service.
But based on Salt Creek, Rossignol Hill should still be taxed anyway.
Yes, exactly. That's
So it's
treating,
not a necessary initiative.
it's treating one area of the city, which I get it. I was there, so that's why I know the history of it, and they pop into my head. That's why sometimes old historians come in handy. But they wasn't thinking of that, and I'm sure it was an oversight, but it's a very unfair oversight.
But Dean, if Rossignol Hill is getting service and Salt Creek is getting service, both should be receiving the tax. The question is, should all of Garden City be receiving the tax? That's the question. It's not whether this taxation should cease, it's whether all of it should be taxed.
If one were upholding the spirit of the charter,
Right.
the intention, yes, it would be a request that it would have to go to a vote with their citizens, and if their citizens approved it in that area or whatever, It would expand, and then their whole area would be paying it. That was the original structure.
But part of it is already in the special service district.
2/3 of Garden City is in the
So-
transit district.
Rossignol Hill being removed is not necessary because it's already receiving service.
It receives service,
And Salt Creek receives service.
they receive service.
So nobody should be untaxed. It should just be left alone. And then the additional stops should be added through the M&O agreement. Whether or not you agree or whether or not the M&O agreement should sit. But Rossignol Hill should be
The
taxed.
Rossignol Hill action is not requesting additional stops.
No, but they should not be untaxed.
And then Garden City,
They're in the district.
and then Garden
So
City
is
could
Salt-
explain.
And so is Salt Creek. So to leave everything without there being an error,
Right.
then we would leave it. The M&O agreement would cover the additional stops. The question is, does the M&O agreement trigger the special service district tax levy because services are now being given?
Right.
So that's a whole together different issue.
If,
It's an issue that I
That's
definitely
the-
don't want to discuss today.
Right. It's not a today issue.
And-
So the today issue is Rossignol Hill should be left alone.
Well, see,
and Garden City could explain to their constituents that were upset about feeling as if they were double taxed,
Double taxed.
that they will only use local option sales tax revenues to actually fund the extra stops they put on there. That would
Stops outside of.
assure them that the property taxes are not playing into their,
Yes.
so it's not a double tax and that,
So, just to be clear, if that's the case, why are we even, if that's what Garden City wants to do, I'm not sure why they're even here then.
but they're here because they sent us a request, all right? So now here's the, after I had listened to everybody, all right? And I had the manager and those to kind of focus this in, all right? We honestly need to send this back to Garden City and Cat, all right? And they need to get together to do one of three things. One of three things. First of all, they need to find out whether they want to approve the IGA between Garden City and Cat to allow for transit expansion from fee paid from the Garden City General Fund. Garden City services will be paid for by Cat taxes rather than by the thing, all right? That's the first one. The second one is expand the Garden City services, the Cat services in Garden City, the whole city and all of them pay whatever fee that is. The third one is roll back the Garden City Cat tax, replace with a fee from all of Garden City. Now, what I want to do here now, so that we can bring this, because we got some other things to do, and then I got to get on the other side of the county line, right? So I'm gonna have the manager and those send this to the Cat board members and to Garden City, all right? You all get together and then bring us back what this board need to pass. Cause this as it sits here, as read here, it ain't swimming, okay? So what I would much rather for you to do is go back, Garden City and Cat get together. You're gonna get this from us, all right? That concludes this meeting and tells us then you all come back and bring us something that we can pass, because right now, we can't pass this.
I just want to make sure that we're only discussing the Rossignol Hill issue and not retroactively renegotiating the contract for expanding the services.
That's between you and Cat. That's not between this commission board. What's between this commission board and you, and between this commission board as Cat, is what you all sent me.
I can tell you there's
All right.
a high probability that you won't see us again regarding this matter.
I don't think the M&O agreement has to change as it relates to Rossignol Hill. They just need to continue as they are.
That's right.
Because Rossignol Hill and Salt Creek are both being taxed.
Yes.
And they're both being
The
served.
nature of the request was based on the area, the economic demographics of that area, the fact that they opted in at one time because they absolutely had to have the service, because it was transportation and this historic black neighborhood was of a premium. And so that's the nature of this request. However, if it doesn't meet the letter of the law, I've done my job because I asked you to consider it. and that's why we were here.
Just a little bit of background history in connection with that. What happened was Garden City initially, under the legislation, the local legislation from 1986, Garden City opted out. But there were people in neighborhoods like Rosenthal Hill that had been receiving service from the Savannah Transit Authority previously. They wanted to continue to receive service. So I may kick myself for telling you this, but at the time, Pat Salerno, the county manager, Charlie Brooks, the county commission chairman, and to become the CAT chairman, and Mike Harbour, the executive director of CAT, call it a handshake, but they agreed that Garden City would opt back in. They had opted out. It was agreed that Garden City would opt back in, but only a certain area of Garden City would be taxed for transit service.
What's the opt-in process?
It's several steps, but the governing body, the city council of Garden City would have to approve petitioning the county commission to come back in. The county commission would then have to approve Garden City coming fully, I guess, in this case, the rest of Garden City coming back into the district, or coming into the special service district, and then then theoretically, the county commission would expand the tax boundaries to include all of Garden City, but ostensibly it already does now, and they would have to order the tax to be levied.
So it's a process, it's an administrative process that is begun by Garden City's council.
Well, yes, it's administrative, except to the extent any action by the Garden City Council and the county commission are legislative.
Legislative, but still, technically, it's
Right,
a process.
right.
It's just a process.
There is a process, and that would.
Okay.
If the
But
county,
if we if you do it that way, then you're going to have a referendum, I would think, in Garden City.
For opting in.
Yes.
But only for the portion, for the whole of Garden City to vote, or just the portion that's affected by the request?
Only the residents of the area that is to be taxed.
so does the county assume any legal,
What part of Garden City, how many,
Attorney.
do you know how many are not currently being taxed? Is it a large portion, or is it,
It's about half.
It's about half.
it's about half? So only half would have to vote on whether or not they wanted you to opt in.
Yes. Then we have to project if it would actually pass, because there are various reasons, some acceptable and some unacceptable, why people don't vote to expand Chatham Area Transit Service. This is why we've done it by contract.
does the county, or Andre, does the county, if we went forward with this, right, and let them do, what liability does the county hold
We don't, because we're compliant with.
with what they requested, right? If that local municipality, if that's what they want to do, in a way to be creative in funding, I don't see why we would stop them, especially if it's gonna help a disadvantaged community.
We're not trying
But you're
to,
not here to approve the M&O agreement. You're only here to decide whether or not to tax Rosenthal Hill. The M&O agreement has been approved by their, the untaxed Rosenthal Hill.
And I have a question.
sure.
Was there consideration given to relief on the city side of taxes, or it was only given to consideration to relieve them on the special?
I can't answer that. I'll have to
And
defer to.
our millage rate is 2.17. I don't have any relief to offer anybody. So, that's one of the benefits of living in Garden City.
And I think everyone should also keep in mind that if we were to decide, or everybody were to decide, to go by the opt-in or expansion of the tax district, of the tax levy, I think it's probably inevitable if CAT's gonna be serving a much broader area, including areas that don't have much in the way of value for purposes of ad valorem taxes, that there's a very good possibility that the millage rate for the CAT district would have to be significantly increased.
Okay, so now, all right, go ahead.
Just so some people have a little better understanding, when I went door to door 20, how many ever years ago, one of the main things people would ask at that time, times have changed, but one of the main things is they would say, are you going to support enforcing a cat tax? I said, no. I would support a vote. If the mayor and council asks for it, I'm all for y'all getting to vote your own destiny on things. And it's a big deal. That's why it was created that way. It's a huge deal for these folks out there to just follow the way the original intent was. But I get it. It very well may get shot down if they try to, I mean, you know, I don't know. And again, I don't blame you. You're doing your job. You brought it, but I'm just doing mine by trying to uphold what I told people I would do, and that's follow the charter of Chatham Area Transit.
I think we can all agree, though, that something's going to have to be done about transit in Chatham County.
Personally, I agree with that 100%.
Especially with multifamily and everything that's happening with Hyundai. You're going to get folks that can't afford to drive and need to go to various places. So for what it's worth, I would ask the county to consider whatever you can do to expand service.
Peace lost.
That is tough.
You bet not say that. Let me get the Commissioner Farrell.
Okay,
Commissioner Farrell got the floor.
right, thank you. So I just want to make an observation. We're talking about Garden City and this particular issue, but there may be some unintended consequences of cutting these special slicing and dicing of municipality, because as Commissioner Kicklighter pointed out earlier, there's places in the city of Savannah out on the west side that are being taxed and have no service. There's plenty of places that in the fourth district that don't have service but are being taxed. So if you give a special deal to opt somebody out of the taxing district, what happens when a group of folks comes in front of us and say, hey, we've been paying this tax for years, the nearest bus stop's 2 miles away, we'd like to opt out for our section of the county because we're not getting service, and we're gonna point to Garden City as an example. Well, they can opt in and out as they want to, you know, why can't we? I don't know what, you know, that's.
I should point out that the two acts were passed in 1986 specifically provide that the city of Savannah is not afforded the opportunity to opt out. The city of Savannah is in, no matter what, according to the legislation.
What about the unincorporated area?
Yeah, because
They get in there.
Unincorporated area is left to the county commission to set the boundaries of the tax district.
Exactly, and that's,
all pay it.
and I'm just making a statement, I'm not saying anything, but there are plenty of places in the unincorporated area that are being taxed, have been for decades, and are not getting served. So how do you do for one and not for the other, if the situation should come up? I'm just talking to the commissioners, I mean, you know, they're the ones that's gotta deal with that question.
Another provision of those acts says that service is to be provided throughout the district on a reasonable basis. Opinions have been rendered that it's not reasonable to take a bus to where you only have 1 or 2 or 3 passengers. That's not reasonable.
All right, so we have covered, all right, why we came here for Garden City and Cat, all right? We're waiting on y'all to get back to us, okay, whatever you want us to do, so that we'll know what we're doing, all right? But you heard the concerns that we had that extended, so it caused us to take it off, all right? Address those concerns and get back to us and as they say, all right? Now, let me invite you to do this. All of you invited to go in the green room, pick up lunch, and then come back, all right? I hope it don't take you but 10 minutes or so to go get your lunch and come back. Then we go to the second half of the 911 and the EMS updates that we need to hear from, all right? Lunchtime.
we're going to start our 911 and EMS update here in just a minute. We're going to have a presentation from Diane Pinckney, who is our 911 director. We're going to have presentations from the deputy director, Les Palmer, as well as Chuck Kearns with Chatham Services. Thank you for being here. We'll have an EMS overview from Zach Schumann, and if you don't know Zach, he used to run the EMS for Chatham County when he worked here, back before the EMS was split off to other agencies, and he still manages our EMS contract. Then we'll have a technology review and update from Sheldon Lewis, who is over our CAD RMS implementation. And then just a general discussion. Okay, so we'll get started with you, Diane. If you let me. You've got a big packet in front of you. A lot of this information was pulled over a 2-week time period in November. And you all had asked for some data on calls, et cetera, during that time period. So this data is here. And we're going to really focus on what we're doing going forward.
Diane may be a soft talker. I'll ask them to give her the mic. Yeah, they got a mic back there in the office.
I do want to say before Diane gets started, you know, we've had a number of you received some calls for complaints concerning our E911 service. I will tell you, those individuals in there do extremely good job. If you look, and Ms. Pinckney is going to go through this, if you look at the sheer volume of calls we get, for the few complaints that we have gotten, the calls they have gotten, it's a relatively small number. So I want y'all to listen to the information we're going to provide you today, and we'll be coming back to you to provide some additional updates with things that progress we're making, things that we're adjusting to make the service a lot better. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? I have been told I'm a very soft talker, so I'll try to speak up.
There you go.
Can y'all hear me okay? Good. Good afternoon, County Commissioners, Mr. Kegler, and each of you, Sheriff, and each of you in your respective roles. As Ms. Kramer said, my name is Diane Pinckney. I'm a 38-year veteran with the 911 Center. This afternoon, I'm pleased to provide an overview of the 911 Center operation, after which Deputy Director Palmer will discuss what happens when a call is made, the challenges of areas of opportunity that we face, and possible solutions. Just to give you a little bit of history about the 911 Center, prior to the merger of the former Chatham County Police Department and Savannah Police Department, both agencies had their own 911 center. When the agencies merged in 2005, the 911 centers were also merged and became a consolidated public safety answering point. In January of 2019, the 911 center transitioned to Chatham County and became a standalone center. Next slide. As far as our center operation is concerned, the 911 center is a fast-paced 24-hour operation, and we are a full-service agency that provides services to all of Chatham County, with the exception of Tybee Island, Georgia, and Hunter Army Airfield. The center handles about 1,500 calls per day, and that number can vary based upon surges, based upon holidays, weekends, etc. They also, included in that number is administrative calls also. We receive and dispatch EMS, police, fire, and first responder calls for service, and we also provide pre-arrival instructions to callers when needed. Next slide. As far as our staffing and scheduling is concerned, the department has myself and 2 deputy directors who are responsible for overseeing the department's operation. As indicated in your packets, 1 deputy director oversees technology and training, and that is Russ Palmer. And the other oversees the operation of the 911 center, the open records section, and the teletype unit, which handles wanted persons, criminal justice information, and things of that nature. When fully staffed, the center consists of 110 people. 17 of those people are assigned to administrative roles throughout the department, and the remaining positions are assigned to the 911 center. Yes, ma'am.
So how many are we short-staffed now?
We're short 22 people in the 911 center. Yes. And I will get to that a little bit later on. The center has a 911 operations administrator who is responsible for direct oversight of the center. The rest of the team, as also is indicated in your packet, is 12 supervisors that are spread across shifts, and they handle the day-to-day operation of the center. The 911 training team, which consists of a lead training officer, a training manager, a background investigator, and the quality assurance officer. And I would like to mention that the quality assurance officer is responsible for reviewing 911 calls for service to ensure compliance. The center also consists of 9 communications training officers who are responsible for training newly hired communications personnel from the point of being assigned to the 911 center up to completion of their training. When fully staffed, we have 50 communications officers who are trained in every aspect of the dispatch and call-taking function. We also have 16 dedicated call takers whose sole responsibility is answering 911 and administrative calls. The department also uses temporary staff who have worked with our center in the past and are fully trained when possible to enhance staffing. Scheduling. The 911 center team works 12-hour shifts, and they are divided into 4 teams. Each communications officer is assigned to a shift. However, during shift shortages or disaster operations, communications officers may be required to work across shifts and in an overtime capacity. Next slide. The department currently has 22 vacancies, as I advised Commissioner Stone earlier. We have 22 vacancies in the 911 center and 1 vacancy in our teletype unit. The communications hiring roster is open continuously, and our staff works with Chatham County Human Resources to conduct bi-weekly testing. Those passing the pre-employment exams are scheduled for interviews as soon as possible after each testing session. The hiring process for communications officers consists of applicants passing a Georgia Post Council mandated physical, drug screen, criminal and driver history background checks, and also they must meet other state and federal hiring standards as well as training and certification requirements. They must also attend the Basic Communications Officer Training course, which is a 40-hour course in Forsyth, Georgia.
They're certified.
Yes, ma'am.
And certified by whom?
The Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council.
Okay, is that the only certification that they have?
No, ma'am. And I'm sure Russ will touch on that as well.
Okay.
They have to go through priority dispatch training and certification. They have to be trained to run driver's licenses and tags and other criminal justice information that's used in the 911 center. That's through the Georgia Crime Information Center, or GVI. They have to have security awareness training because of the kind of information that they handle. Emergency medical dispatch training, police dispatch training, and fire dispatch training.
Okay, thank you. Diane, can you talk a little bit about the difference between the call takers and the communication officers, or is that something else?
I will get with that. It actually is a part of the presentation. But I can talk about it now. I will say before getting to that, that the initial, the call takers do nothing but answer telephone calls. That's their job. And the hands-on training for them takes about 8 weeks. That's the initial training. However, the training is ongoing for both communications officers and call takers. Training, I'm sorry. No, ma'am, not, a call taker is just that. They don't do any cross-training as far, they do have the opportunity to go up, which Russ will talk a little bit about that because that is his area. But before we advertise or hire from the outside, those call takers that want to move up in a communications officer capacity, we do offer it to them first.
And the reason the call taker was put into place was because, especially during COVID, you know, to have someone come in and have to complete all that training, which takes a long time, you know, we needed people on the phones. So HR worked with 911 to get those call takers to come in so we could get the calls answered and then train them up.
That's correct. And training for a communications officer who is a dispatcher and a call taker, it takes longer. It takes up to a year because of all the channels that they have to learn how to operate. They have to learn how to handle high-speed chases, other in-progress calls that the field officers or field personnel may encounter. And there are several different channels that they operate. So the training is a lot more detailed, and it helps if they know the operation from the ground up, which is basic communications, call taking, on up to dispatching.
Call. They have to then pass that on to somebody else?
If they get a call, they type it into the CAD system, which will be in the call flow information that Russ and Kelvin are going to give you. They actually take the call, put it into the CAD system, a computer-aided dispatch system, in case you don't know what that acronym means. And then 911 and public safety as a whole, we use a lot of acronyms. So if you hear me use something or Russ use something, you don't understand what it is, please ask. But
What I'm trying to get you to now, tell me. Call taker gets a call. It goes into the CAD system, right?
yes, sir.
It then go into the dispatcher?
Yeah, it'll come up on the computer, and the dispatcher in the other room, yes. To answer your question, yes, it will. It'll come up in the other room, and the dispatcher will actually see it come up in her queue, his or her queue, and then they can dispatch it.
So while they're on the phone, they're actually putting the information in the CAD system so that it can be passed on to the dispatcher?
Yes.
Seconds? Tenths of a seconds? What are we talking
When they
about?
start typing, and that's when it happens. Russ is going to talk about all of that with the new system. When they get to a set point, they can transmit that call, and it goes into the CAD system. And while the call taker is still taking information that's relative to that call, it can be being dispatched to EMS. And the 911 center staff is, just wanted to talk a little bit about call handling before I hand it over to Russ. The 911 center is trained to communicate with callers from all walks of life who are experiencing different situations. For example, we talk to hysterical callers, irate callers, suicidal callers, emotional callers, people that may be experiencing all kinds of situations, such as threat to life. So that's why we train up our staff as much as we can to make sure that they know how to handle all of these different situations. There was one slide that I missed, but I'll go ahead and talk about it. And that is the various certifications or background pieces that come into play when it comes to communications officers. They have to Well, I think I did already talk about that, right? So I'll conclude. In conclusion, before Deputy Director Palmer begins his presentation, we want to play a sampling of a CPR call related to, just to help you to understand the kinds of calls that come into the 911 center. On this call, the call taker is providing pre-arrival instructions from a script that all center personnel has been trained to use. When a call taker is providing pre-arrival instructions, they must stay on the phone with the caller until EMS arrives on scene. At the conclusion of this call, Russ will present this part of the presentation. Any questions?
Chatham 911, what's your location? Legendary Park. Can you hear me? Yes, ma'am, what's going on? I'm ready to start. I think he might be having a heart attack. He's having it on the track. Okay, where at? Legendary Park on the walking trail. When you pull into the park from Montgomery Crossroads, if you go to the right, we're maybe, not even a quarter of a mile around the track to the right. Okay. Is he clutching his chest? Is he breathing? Is he breathing? We don't know. Okay, can someone touch his chest? Is it rising or falling? It doesn't look like it. Okay, we need to start CPR, ma'am. We're trying, but we don't. I can walk you through it. All right, hold on. She's going to walk us through it. Okay, he's laying flat on the ground. Wait, hold on. I got to take off this. You wait just a second. Okay, go ahead, lady. Okay, so we want to use one hand and place his forehead and the fingers of your other hand. We want to tilt his head back.
Breathing. Breathing up, tilt his head up. Tilt his head up.
Yeah, we want to tilt his head up. If his chest is not rising and falling, we're going to start CPR.
Yeah, chest is not rising and falling.
Okay, so we got his head tilted up. We want his head tilted up and back. So we can, yeah, tilt it up and back. What do you mean up and back? I'm sorry, I don't. So you want to take one hand, place one hand on his forehead, and use the fingers of your other hand under the bony part of his chin and tilt his head back. Okay.
Yeah, we need to do something. Yeah, he's breathing.
Okay, he's trying to breathe.
Trying to breathe.
Okay, that opens up his airway. Is his chest rising and falling? Or is just air coming out?
I don't see his chest rising and falling. He took a deep breath and then went back out again.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to we're just going to do compressions only. Is that okay?
Come on, we need to do something. We need to.
Yeah. Okay, kneel beside his chest. Put the heel of one hand in the center of his breastbone, right between his nipples, and put the heel of your other hand on top of the first hand, and lean forward so your arms are straight and you're directly over his chest. And then we're going to do 200 compressions, okay? Push down firmly, 2 inches into his chest. And I need you to count out 30 compressions.
This call was about a 2.5-minute snippet of what was actually about an 8-minute call. During the call, you were able to hear our communications call taker obtain the location of the incident, determine what was going on, and provide pre-arrival instructions to the bystanders to perform CPR until help arrived. What you can't hear, and it's probably the most important part of this whole call, is how this early intervention by our team helped save this man's life that day. Our call takers are the first responders. They receive calls and provide pre-arrival instructions for CPR administration to a loved one that's not breathing. They provide instructions to safely deliver babies. And sadly, they're the last person someone talks to before they take their own lives. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Russ Palmer. I'm one of the Deputy Directors at the 911 Center. I have presented me today with Chief Kearns from Chatham Emergency Services and Mr. Kelvin Lewis, Program Manager from Chatham County Project Management Office. Twist this around a little bit. Today we want to paint a picture for you. When dialing 911 or on the phone with the 911 call taker, time seems to often creep by. We're going to break down an incident, basically the life cycle of the call, in 5 different phases. I got to drive home. During the 5 phases, we're going to talk about the areas of opportunity that we have, areas of measures that we have in place, and then some things that we need from you all. In front of you, you should have a packet of information. It's got 5 different slides for it. You have like a green background like sheet has all it. These boards are kind of the 5 different phases that we're going to talk about. I'll have them on the slides here for you as well. So the 5 different phases we're going to talk about is when the incident happens. So this is the incident and the call request. So something occurs in the county, they place a 911 call to us. The second piece of this is going to be the call processing. So this is once the call has been received in the 911 center, and we're beginning to process this information. The third step, I'll turn it over to Chief Kearns at that point. He'll discuss the call processing inside of the CES dispatch center. The fourth piece of it will be the ambulance dispatch process, which is where we're finding the most appropriate resource that's available to send to the call. And the fifth piece of it is the ambulance response time from the time they get notified until they get on scene. On your slides, if you're looking at them, you'll notice they have a clock on there. One number represents the approximate amount of time that it takes for this process to happen, and the other one is a running clock that shows from the time the incident happens until a unit gets on scene, just as a sample.
I have a question. On that call, was that the same person that answered the call that started the CPR?
It was. Yes, ma'am. So for that one, that call taker stayed on the line with them throughout the whole time until first responders got there. And the only thing she was able to focus on was providing CPR instructions.
She'd already done dispatch already.
But she put it into the system, and then the other dispatchers dispatched it out. Yes, ma'am. And so based off it, and we'll talk a little bit about it in just a moment, so I'll talk more on it if you don't mind. Okay, so in the first step, this is when the incident happens. Some of the challenges that we face are the inappropriate use and abuse of 911. We're not just particularly talking about the 911 calls, but also the non-emergency calls. Mr. Lewis is going to talk a little bit more about the initiatives we have in place to help work on that part of it. Some of the other areas of concern are duplicate street names, other mapping issues. This has been a long-standing problem in Chatham County. I know that Commissioner Stone, we're working with you on a portion of that, and we're hopefully going to apply that to the rest of the county as well. We do have multiple duplicate street names across the county, such as there's a Bay Street in downtown and a Bay Street on Tybee. You can imagine what that does to a response plan or a response time. We have the Executive Advisory Board, the EAB, that's working with us on this. We do have a new ordinance. It's a
governance.
Yeah, governance agreement that they've approved and is helping us push that forward countywide. Some of the solutions that we have in motion for this portion of it, again, is a public education campaign about when to call 911 for emergencies and in-progress crimes, as well as non-emergency call center. Mr. Lewis will talk about those in just a second. We do work very closely with strategic planning on our mental health and homeless population. We're working with her on several things from that. The second step is the call processing. So this is when the call has actually got into the 911 center. We've answered the phone. Probably some of the biggest challenges that we face here are callers not knowing where they're at. We see about 11 million tourists a year, so you can imagine they're trying to describe which one of the squares we're on. We have a lot of technology available to us that we'll talk about in a second that can help us locate the callers, but again, it's not perfect. It still relies on outdated 911 technology. Sudden surges from the same call. So if you see an accident on the interstate, imagine everybody going both directions also sees that same accident. Guess what everybody's going to do? They're all going to pick up the phone and they're all going to dial 911. We talked about the 16 call takers that we have. We normally have 4 on a shift. So if every single person going both ways on the interstate dials 911, we got 4 people responsible for answering all those calls. Now, I will say the.
And how many, in a perfect setup, how many people will we have answering those calls?
For the typical times, outside of a surge, 4 to 6 people is more than adequate. But during a surge like that period, a couple weeks ago, something we were looking into, we had 150 calls in a 30-minute time period.
And you only had 4 people.
But that's one of those surges that we can't really plan for.
I understand, I'm just asking what the volume is for those 4 people.
And so that is 4 people due to the staffing shortages, or is that just the plan, 4 people?
That is where we're at currently, but we have been working a lot with the manager's office. They gave us approval to overhire for those positions, and we're currently doing that.
Is there software available that y'all could, when you get a wreck reported, y'all could type it in real quick and 911 automatically be answered with the software, and it's say, if you're calling to report the accident on, we're aware of it, please hang up. Others remain on the line. Do y'all have, is that such a thing?
I know of one vendor that's offering it, but it's starting to deal with that whole AI side of the world. It can be very challenging, but it's something that we can look into. It would basically filter the call by location and put them in a different queue. And then if a call occurs outside of that area, you would answer that before you answer the other ones that are ringing, because you know it's probably related to that same thing. But I only know of one vendor, they're a new company that's just starting up doing that. That's really scary at this point.
I think Charleston's doing that, so we've been talking with them, and
They're doing it for the non-emergency side. They haven't
That's what they
to
have.
the other side yet.
still don't know.
They just started it, so they don't have a success record yet.
They started.
Let me ask you this now,
Sure.
because you mentioned this. You said something about something that's outdated.
I'm gonna talk about what we're doing to fix that here in just a minute.
What did you say was outdated?
Just the technology of 911. And by that, I mean how we locate callers is through cell phone locations only, through the tower locations. We have to triangulate
I
that.
think what Tim's trying to get at is, and we've had this, if you call 911 on a landline, they can pinpoint where you are.
Right.
But if you do it with a cell phone, that technology to pinpoint where you are is outdated. So you get a better pinpoint if you use a landline versus a cell phone.
So is there anything on the market that pinpoints cell phones?
We're in a contract with AT&T right now to update our 911 center to what's known as next generation 911.
We in negotiations with them?
Yes, sir. We're working with the contract now.
How long has that technology been available?
There's 2 other places in Georgia that have done it. There's a couple of other states that were already working
it's
as
new.
well.
Gotcha.
But how long?
How long has the technology been available? I have to give an exact answer, but it's just a couple of years old. It's not.
Because I would imagine this day and time, most people do call from a cell phone.
85% of our calls come from the cell phone.
Right, so, yeah, so, I mean, I don't know, honestly, I don't know too many people that use a landline anymore.
That's part of our challenge of trying to locate people, and part of the having to stay on the phone with them for extended periods of time, especially if they're tourists, trying to figure out exactly where they're at. That's one of our challenges that we definitely have. And so we're using some of the technology that we've already implemented with our new CAD system to help. And then we're also working with AT&T on upgrading to the new next-gen system.
I mean, the incident that I referred to a few months ago was, I don't know whether they used a landline or a cell phone, but the problem was the ambulance went to the wrong driveway. So whatever we need to do with this cell phone thing, I would think that would be first and foremost.
Yeah, as you're aware, because of the expenditures, we invested a whole lot of money here on our CAD, RMS system, and trying to do those upgrades. But it's still, a lot of it's going to depend on, particularly the situation you're talking about, it's going to depend on addressing, because you can have the right location, but if the properties are not you don't have the address on the property, you still gonna have that issue.
I understand, but oftentimes the caller is not in a state of mind, as you said earlier, to give you an accurate description. I would imagine if someone's having a heart attack, they can barely talk. So this technology would be critical.
We're really excited to be on kind of the leading edge for the state with this. So it is something that we're working really hard to get.
Do private companies use that?
This technology, no ma'am, it's just for 911.
No, I meant if the county were to outsource this to a private company, do they use it?
So it's how the infrastructure is built into your company. So, I mean, technically, a private company could go through the same process that we're going through now to upgrade their technology.
I'm just curious because, you know, it's pretty scary when someone's dependent on 911 and they can't find you.
It is, and that's, you know, there's, like I said, that's pieces of the outdated technology that we're working furiously to get upgraded.
How furiously?
Ma'am?
How furiously?
We met 2 weeks ago, the first week of January, to finalize the contract and just waiting for all the language to come back from AT&T to get approved, and Tara's gonna help us out with the funding stream.
It's gotta go through the lawyers, right?
Yes, sir. It'll go through all the legal process.
All right, let me ask a question then.
Yes, sir.
How much of our 911 system is outdated?
If you're looking at the entire process.
I'm looking at the entire process.
Our building's way outdated.
I know about the building.
That one.
You want to tell me about the building? I know about the building.
I'm not plugging where I can.
Listen now, here's what I'm saying now. Don't plug the building. All right, stay off of that because that's not your street. What I'm asking you though is, how much of the technology needed to speed up our way of handling 911, how much of that is outdated? That might be a question for
The
Mr.
last piece
Lewis.
that we're waiting to upgrade is the phone system. We've already upgraded our CAD system, the radio system's great infrastructure.
All right, the phone system's updated.
The CAD system that we just implemented in October, that's updated. The radio system we have in place is great. The last piece we're doing is the phone.
Okay, all right, now you answer my question.
One last question, just for clarity. Even if the center is fully staffed, there's only 4 call takers per shift?
At present, yes, but like I said, we're working with the manager's office to get that.
No,
done.
that can't be right. Because he says at fully staffed.
Right.
What is
And you
fully
said at
staffed?
present.
Depends on which shift.
See, and Ms. told us that we 22 short. See, the answer you gave us don't jive, all right?
We're only one.
Fully
call
staffed.
short.
Oh, slow your roll. Fully staffed, how many would you have? 6, 8, 10?
Fully staffed, we would have 16 call takers.
Okay.
Divided out across.
That's what he's asking
Wait,
you.
divided out,
But that's
that doesn't mean at the
Yeah.
same time. So how many at a time?
We have, if we're fully staffed, we would have 4 call takers assigned to each shift. However, we have other communications officers that work in the main center that are capable of answering telephone calls as well. So we're trying to get away from that because it presents liability to our field personnel when we have communications dispatchers answering calls. So Mr. Kegler has given us permission to overhire.
Giving you permission to what?
Overhire. For
Overhire.
communications call takers.
And when you look at the call volume over the years, you'll see that because our call volume is increasing year over year.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at our population. I mean, so it would only make sense that we would need to be increasing these numbers. But I still would question, at this point in time, 4 people to take care of this entire county.
That's just 4 call takers. You're not.
I know, I'm talking about the call
That's the
takers.
first step.
That's the first step. You got call takers and you got communication officers. They're call takers too and dispatch.
I
They're doing.
understand, but where the complaints I'm getting, which have increased significantly over the last 8 months to a year have been from, we can't get through. So that is my question, that 4 people for a county of 300,000.
Plus visitors.
Plus, yeah, then you get the visitors, the tourists. That does not sound adequate to me, and I'm not even in the business, but 4 people?
If you look, if you look at in your handout on page 11, it'll give you the staffing breakdown of the call center. And those folks are there, they're just taking calls.
Understand, I'm not here to criticize, I'm here to ask questions, and I'm here to make sure that we're doing the very best we can to handle emergency situations in Chatham County. And I understand, look, I would not want that job. I'll be the first to tell you, if somebody's telling me they're having a heart attack, I'm gonna scream. You know, I don't know that I could handle a situation, the stress of that. That's not where I'm going with this. It sounds like to me, we significantly need more than 4 people at a time to service the needs of Chatham County.
Yes, we do. And it is exciting to me that you all are aware of this now, because now we can get the staffing, the adequate staffing that we need to service the public. And we don't want to give up giving pre-arrival instructions, because as you can tell from the call that we just listened to, that was a life save.
But my concern is this, in all honesty, and again, I commend you for what you do. But the reason we're here, part of this, I wanted this workshop because I have now started receiving, for the first time since I've been a commissioner, complaints about 911. I just wish that if y'all had been short-staffed earlier, you would have said something to us and tried to get the funding, because I hate some of these calls, I mean, these emails that I'm getting from people saying, you know, we didn't know what to do. We waited on the phone. We tried 9 minutes. You know, I don't know what their situations, some of them are very graphic about what their situations are in the email. And to make it even worse, when the first responders get there and the person complains about 911, the first responders in one email, and I've got it in an email, trashed the 911 people and said, yeah, they're not doing their job at all. So I'm really concerned. Y'all are our initial response to helping people in crisis. And if you don't have what you need, then I'm not doing my job.
And they've got we've looked at that, they've got the authorization to overhire. One of the issues we've had is staffing.
I understand.
So they've got that ability, and that's what we're working toward.
And in defense of this commission and of yourself, I don't want the public watching to misinterpret. There's 22 vacancies right this minute. The county manager gave permission for them to overhire. So anything as far as not enough people at this point is not the fault of this county commission.
No, and I didn't mean
So I'm letting you know, I mean, others watching might not understand the whole thing, and they need to understand that we have funded it fully.
What I was saying is that I wish if they were short-staffed, they had come to us early. You know, I don't
Well,
want.
they have, and Michael gave them permission, but they still can't fill the
I
vacancies.
know, but I'm talking about earlier, like in a year and a half ago. Because, you know, I'm finding out now that the volume that we have is an issue.
We have.
Short staffing is almost universal now.
We have hired. As you all know, retention across the nation for 911 professionals is very high, the retention rate. And it's several variables for that. Some people can't work midnights or different shifts. During COVID, a lot of people didn't have anyone to keep their children, so they had to find other career paths. So now we're having to recover from all that. And as I mentioned to you all earlier, to train a call taker is really detailed, because they have to have so much training to provide the level of service that the public expects from us. For example, CPR instruction. We've had communications call takers help people deliver babies. Well, these are lay people, these are not medical professionals. So we have to make sure they have the appropriate foundation before they even go on the floor. So that's 8 weeks of training. That includes the certifications, and then they have to go into the 911 center to get hands-on training to be able to handle these calls. So anytime we lose a person, that is critical, because we have to spend that much more time and money.
I understand.
to train.
I'm just trying to figure out what we need to do to make sure that we can get to the people that need help.
And I agree.
In an expedited manner, and to try to analyze if some of these calls are not true emergencies. You know, I know that I guess, I don't know where the county manager went, but you're there.
He had to go to the JDA meeting.
Okay. I know that I've asked for a simpler non-emergency number for this county. I mean, a full-fledged 7-digit number, somebody's not going to remember that if, you know, if their dog is being stolen from them, that they tied to a tree while they did something, or you know, something that's a non-emergency, but yet, you know, that's their dog and it's being taken. So, or, you know, a theft in progress that it doesn't require emergency services. So we need to do better with a non-emergency number, I would think.
Yeah, and we have a lot of data in here about the non-emergency calls and how we're trying to approach them. This is not like a one-step problem. This is like a 4 or 5 or 6 step
Understand.
problem. And we're, you know, replacing the system, you know, we're hoping to see technologies out of that help us. We have expanded positions at the center. We're looking at pay increases at the center to see what we can do to engage people to come work for us here at Chatham County. The EOC, the new facility at the airport, will have a significant amount of room.
And when is that
devoted to
supposed to be?
911. I think we're about to go out for bid on that facility.
We've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah, they're kind of tightening up the design right now, but, you know, the call center they're in right now is very small and cramped, and as you know, during COVID, that was a real issue for us. So we're here to tell you all the great things we're doing.
So let me ask you this. When we initially talked about the CAD system to getting it put in place, seems like a very long time to me. Was that a process that we had to encounter to get to where we are now?
Okay, this call center, 911 CAD RMS, is going to serve every municipality in Chatham County, every fire department and police department, EMS, everybody except City of Tybee Island who opted out. It's very complicated. There are a lot of interfaces between systems that have to be done, and so I'm going to let Kelvin tell you a little bit more about that, but just getting that, you know, coming up with which software, which provider we needed was a long process.
So now is that...
Training is another issue that has impacted the 911 center, because all these call takers have to be trained on the new system while we're running the old system. So we had a lot of back and forth on that, but I think we're past that hurdle. I think we're really at a point where we're able to move forward.
So this technology is gonna be good for how long?
Ever, as long as we're working.
I mean,
Technology
changed like.
They'll upgrade it. I mean, this is a well-known vendor, Central Square, and that's been working with us.
Yeah, they push out at least annual updates just to the current software, and then you do like complete version overhaul every 7 to 10 years.
And kind of circling back to the chairman's question, because he asked about the technology being improved. My question is a bigger question. As far as it being improved, is there room for growth with it? Because like we've addressed, Chatham County is not the Chatham County it was 10 years ago. And it's growing. So it's one thing to have technology upgraded, but it's another thing to have the best of the available technology.
Madam Commissioner, if I can answer that for you. I'm Kelvin Lewis. I'm the program manager responsible for the project management office. And I'm the one that's been on this CAD implementation program since we started. It was a 5-year program to get to where we are now. We knew that going in. But the system was designed and spec'd for the growth of Chatham County. We knew that the county was growing. We needed to have a public safety system that was going to accept the growth and manage the growth. So the system, to answer your question, is it capable of handling the current county? It is definitely capable of handling the current county and the future needs of the county. That's why we did it. And it's kind of like the old adage, if you build it, they will come. By us building this and doing this, we had the Savannah Airport to join our program. They're an outside agency. They joined. So their law enforcement agencies are now part of our program. So you'll hear me talk about interoperability improvements. That's one of the interoperability improvements that were taking place. We also have Chatham Area Services, which is an outside agency that also joined. So we are increasing interoperabilities and capabilities throughout. And that's important because when you have an emergency and you need to send the right type of person to respond, whether fire, law enforcement, and they have the certain type of equipment, it's nice for us to be able to look at the system and know who's coming to give you aid that has the right skill sets and the right equipment to provide the necessary aid in a timely manner.
I'd like to add also, I've been with the county for 38 years, so I was the first dispatcher, one of 4 that the county hired. And so I know how the system has improved from that point until now. We used to have to pick up the phone and call SPD if we needed needed aid from them, or if we needed any resources, we had to pick up the phone. But now we type it into the CAD system, you know, and that.
So who receives that type in?
Well, it depends on the resources that we need. It might be Chief Kearns' personnel, EMS.
So are those people always on duty?
Oh, yeah, 24/7. We've got the same CAD system in our building, and when they type in the call, a new screen pops up in front of our dispatchers with all the information on it.
So that part is huge for us from the operational side of things, because now the call taker can be at another location, like at Chief Kearns' dispatch center or the airport's dispatch center, and our people are just typing the information, and whatever is needed to dispatch that call can be put in the system. You don't have to pick up the phone anymore. So that is huge, having a 911 system that works across disciplines that way. So that is something that I think that's a major milestone. Every time, just about every time there's a major upgrade, it also comes along with training. So having to do the training for this project, which can't get all into your weeds, having to do the training for this project was huge for us, especially given the staffing situation that we're going through. So,
Can we go to the next slide and talk about those challenges a little bit more?
I can't, the next slide is, I'm gonna turn it over to Chief Kearns if we're going to number 3.
Okay.
I'll let him talk about that. I just wanted to make a point for Commissioner Kicklighter. You said that we had the positions that has been just getting the people on board. We test 16 people a week for the pre-employment test for this position. We schedule 16 people. Let me clarify. Less than half of those people actually show up and do the pre-employment test. And then of those that do it, a fraction of them pass the test, and then a fraction of them can make it through the background process. And so we start off with, I think we processed a couple of hundred applications last quarter, and we hired, I'll tell you in a minute, while he's looking, I'll tell you what it was for last quarter, but that's our biggest problem is.
So how you recruiting? What are you outside of Georgia?
So we pay, there's 2 professional organizations for 911. They're APCO and NENA. We actually advertise on both of their websites, so they go nationwide. We advertise on the Sheriff's Association, the Fire Chiefs Association, the Police Chiefs Association. We advertise for our positions. Human Resources, I believe they do like LinkedIn and Facebook and all that kind of stuff for the local area. But we go to schools, we go to job fairs, everyone that we can get invited to in Chatham County. We have a team that's more than willing to go to it. So we try and get out as much as we can.
Is our pay competitive?
I'll let Shannon talk to that.
I guess no.
It's, we're lagging, but we're not lagging as bad as we may think we are. I mean, we're lagging against counties that are, we're lagging about 5%. That's not as bad as it sounds, but there's opportunities, of course, for that. Some organizations, though, they give them, we wait until they maybe cross some threshold before they get an increase. Some organizations front load that, for example, so that's why it's not always an apples to apples, but all that to say, we are lagging, but it's not by a wide margin.
Is the retention different amongst those front load?
That I can't speak to. I think that the retention is a challenge in public safety in general across the board, and just that this is a very difficult position to make it through that certification process.
Any other questions before I turn it over to Chief Kearns? We kind of skipped through a little bit.
I want to stay within the realm of the discussion, but I'm just curious as to why private companies that do this don't seem to have as many recruitment problems as we do. Is there, have any idea as to why that would be?
I couldn't tell you because I'm not familiar with, but a handful of private 911 centers.
We have the same problem with our dispatch center, trying to recruit good qualified people.
But I'm asking why doesn't seem to be a problem with some of the privately contracted companies.
Well, you know, we're very public and transparent about what we do. I don't have data from private employers. We'd love to look at that if you're referring to somebody in particular, and we'll call them and see what they're doing, you know, that might be better. And I'm sure you've seen, like at some of your conferences, you know, every year.
Well, that's why I'm partly why I'm asking some of these questions, you know, is
we be competitive? How do we, you know,
And some of
because
the big ones,
we can be a great career, you know, Chatham County can be a great career.
And we've met with, like Cobb in Atlanta. They have, at one point in time last year, they had less than a 10% vacancy rate for almost 200 employees, which is phenomenal. So we met with them to find out what they were doing for recruitment and retention and their hiring process and their training process. We've done the same thing with Charleston and several other ones, trying to figure out how some of these other centers are doing it differently than we are.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm just hearing that, you know, we seem to be significantly short-staffed in comparison, only to the ones that have approached me. I don't want to say that this is nationwide, or I don't want to say that I've pulled data. I'm just telling you that the companies that I've talked to, whether it's a NACO conference or whether it's ACCG, we just seem to have a lot of vacancies.
I'd be interested to see where they were at and what their pool of available candidates look like in comparison to what we have as well.
Certifications that are required.
I think they may cast a broader net based on some that I've talked to, like the recruiting. I don't know what our recruiting processes are, so.
I mean, we're recruiting on all of the major platforms, social media wise. We're recruiting with all the professional organizations involved with 911. We pay a company every year to push it out every quarter and refresh it and keep it updated for us.
Have you thought of any type of incentives to?
We've looked at hiring incentives. We've looked at, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, but we've done some in the past as far as hiring and retention bonuses.
I think since 2021, I think we've increased pay by about 29% on the average. So we really have been aggressive with, you know, base salaries, and then we had a few kind of bonuses during that time that we were able to give out with the federal and state money that we received. So trying to move forward here.
So how's the morale of the employees?
We did a survey not too long ago. I don't know if Shannon wanted to talk about it. We haven't all met about it, but.
We can get that to you. We'll get you the survey results. Okay.
Is there anything educationally that they can do to train for this beforehand?
So there's,
You mean like at Savannah Tech? Or?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
That's something that I think Kelvin's going to talk about, and I think it's on the list of things that we would like y'all's help with about trying to bring. There's one training center for communications officers throughout the entire state, and that's in Forsyth. But we have a branch of that post here in Chatham County for the police officer side, just not the communication officer side. So that's one of the things that's on the list of things we would like for y'all to help us with about trying to get something like that here so we can attract and kind of do some of that training ahead of time.
With permission from my co-commissioners here, would you all mind us moving along in the presentation? And then we can come back with questions after they're finished. Thank you. Okay, we'll move along then.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for letting me present before you today. Commissioner Whiteley, your EMT was starting to show during the CPR segment. I saw you bombing a little bit. I'm Chuck Kearns, the CEO of Chatham Emergency Services, and I'm going to take you through the next 3 steps. So if you go to step 3 in your handouts, now I'm not going to read it as a bullet point, but I'm going to try to elaborate on most of them to give you background. And your question about linking, I think the county is linking, but you have a spillover agreement with another county, so when 911 gets too many calls, it will spill over. When I worked in Florida, our ambulance service did that for our county. When they got too busy at the 911 center, the phones automatically transferred over to us and we started answering.
Well, we need to do something, and I'm aware too, from my work with mental health and substance abuse, that now we have the 988 calls that roll into our 911 center. So I know there are challenges. I just get the feeling that we're not up to speed as to where we need to be to handle some of these challenges.
Just my personal opinion, everybody's working really, really hard.
I understand, but we're getting emails and complaints.
So let me use that as the segue for step number 3, and you see under the picture there, the 1 to 2 minute time frame. We're 6 minutes into the normal call now, and it's coming over to the ambulance center. It's popping up on our screen. So that's an elapsed 6 minutes from the time the 911 call is answered. You can see, some of the challenges that we have there. The second bullet point is really critical to your understanding. We run 200, and on busy days, over 300 ambulance responses to 911 calls in this county a day. And close to 50% of all the calls we respond to are canceled. They don't want to go to the hospital. But yet we're still responding out there, and we're on scene doing assessments, talking with the person, trying to negotiate, getting them to go to the hospital. 50% of all of our responses. It fluctuates a little bit, but 50% is a really good number. So,
And y'all are the ones that determine whether they need to be transported.
well, we give them our best advice, but we don't kidnap people. They say,
I didn't think you did, but I mean, my question was, if someone says, I don't think I need to go, and you emphatically know that they do.
Yes.
Then but I'm sure there are a lot of people on the flip side of that coin that call an ambulance that really don't need to go, but want to go, because, they don't have a primary care doctor, so I won't get into that.
That's right. Even with everybody supposedly having insurance nowadays because of the Affordable Care Act, a lot of people don't have the coverage, or they're reluctant to call because their deductibles are so high that they don't want to call because they know they're going to get the bill. It's too early in the year, their insurance hasn't kicked in. So we've actually seen more private payers. Used to be around 7% in the industry. Now it's more like 25%, where people are having to pay out of their pocket because their insurance has not kicked in yet. So does the call really need an ambulance? So I'll give you a couple of examples. We responded the other day because when they call, we must respond. There's frost on my stairs. I'm afraid I might slip. Would somebody come over and walk me down the stairs? I have dropped my TV remote and I can't reach it. Would you send a crew by to hand it to me? Jesus. Would you get my groceries out of the car? I need to let my dog out. Can someone help me? These are the calls that are coming into your 911 center, so it speaks to your having an alternative line instead of 911. So these should be routed to another place. These are not 911 EMS emergency calls.
Stupid fee.
And if anything, since Chief Hadley isn't here, maybe send a single police officer and not tie up the.
Have you ever thought of proposing a stupid fee? Someone calls for some absolute idiotic thing, they ought to be penalized.
Well,
I mean, there is a level of sense
we've done that.
that someone ought to have before dialing 911.
We've actually done that, so I'll get to that. It's in my presentation. But you can see some of the solutions that are in motion in the middle of the screen. Now, areas of opportunity, we're still having some technology learning curve issues with the new CAD. So if it's a multi-unit response or multi-agency, say police is going and fire is going and it's a minor thing, and they also ask for an ambulance to go, non-emergency. It's not life-threatening, so we're not turning on the lights and sirens. Well, if police and fire clear and 911 ends the call, it doesn't end the call over at our center. It's still a live call. We don't know that they've already been there and canceled and gone available. So we've started working with the 911 center here recently with a alert us, let us know if there's a change in the status. And we don't talk to each other anymore on radio. We do have telephone communication, but there's a messaging. It's like a text messaging system. So now the 911 center is letting us know. Or the crews are hearing on the radio, fire going available, and so they'll radio in and say, hey, are we still needed on this call? So people, it's a learning curve. It's a different way to communicate, but it's really starting to work. And we appreciate the 911 center doing that. We could use an integrated nurse hotline. So when people are calling like, I'm running out of my medications, yes, they do call for that. I one time fielded a 911 call for my toilet's backed up. So they call for all kinds of reasons. Memorial's looking into having a nurse call.
I would like to see the integrated nurse hotline. I mean, especially for people that, it could be something like I'm running a temperature and I can't keep fluids down. What do I need to do?
Memorial has that capability. They're going through their legal review process, and if 911 got a call like that, it would just be press a button and it would go ring at that line. So that's in process.
That would be great.
We're having trouble with the MDT, the mobile data terminals or mobile computer terminals in the ambulances. They crash, and the vendor is working on why do they crash so often, and also the mapping is off. So in some instances, we were going to a car crash on I-16 near I-95. The mapping was telling our crew to go into Southbridge to get to a crash on the interstate. So there are glitches that they're working on, but they remain today. We oftentimes get sent to an incorrect location, as Russ was saying, I'm in a square. What square? I don't know. There's a statue. So, it makes it hard and it adds time to the front end of the call. And unlike police and fire, who know their jurisdiction, EMS has to know the entire county. So the mapping is really critical to us. Next slide. So we'll go to step 4, and now we're 8 minutes into the normal average call. And challenges, available ambulances post-COVID. Now, this is the same challenge you've been having with the 911 center. The workforce vanished. Many of us were able to work from home. Not EMTs and paramedics. They went into sick people's homes every single day, 10 times a day during COVID. I quarantined 300 times my employees. So in the beginning, they were out for 2 weeks, and at the end of the pandemic, they were out for 7 days. And so that hurts your workforce. And people are saying, why am I doing this? I'm going to bring this disease home to my family. I'm out of here. And it was the great resignation for EMS. We're building back up. It's not all doom and gloom. It's getting better. But I'll give you some numbers in a little bit. So it's been a worldwide problem. The only place that has surplus paramedics in the world right now is Australia. And American companies are actually hiring paramedics from Australia and bringing them over to the States. We started our own academy where we are hiring from within the community, and we're paying people to join our company, and then we're training them to become EMTs. It's about an 8 to 10 week process. And then we're paying for their license. and we're paying for their tests and trying to make it as easy as possible. We ran into a couple of problems, and it was kind of trial and error. In the first group, I'm just going to share a little, mistake we made. We waited toward the end of the training to do the drug testing of the onboarding process, and several people fell out. We're a drug-free workplace. Then we were having people who actually got into the program, and we realized they weren't very good at reading and writing. And in the case of dispatch, you can't type like I do and work in dispatch. You got to be fast and accurate. So we've actually implemented a literacy test on the first day to know whether somebody's going to be able to actually take the EMT class. And then we offer free paramedic training to our internal employees, so they can do that on off-shift days.
One thing y'all did fund was some training for
did.
EMTs during with ARPA money, so that was very helpful.
Yes, the county absolutely stepped up. We asked the state, our industry asked the state, we filled out an ARPA grant for the association for recruitment and training and retention money, and that was denied, but in the middle of the pandemic, but at least they funded the arts. So, I think having a paramedic would have been a little bit more important for the state. Ambulances being held at hospitals, hospital bed delays, it cripples us. The hospitals are cooperating very well with us, doing the best that they can do, and we even developed an app. So ambulance crews can look and see which hospitals are open and accepting patients and which aren't. And then there's a text message group with all the people for different ERs and EMS and dispatch that we keep up to date on. Memorial's going to go red for 2 hours or whatever. That means don't bring us anybody but a critical patient who's dying right now to try to save their life. 3 weeks ago, all the EDs in this county were red at the same time. Our next option was to go to Effingham, take our patients there, or South Carolina. It happens. And it's completely out of our control. So, solutions in motion. We started using ALS and BLS ambulances because we prioritize the severity of the call once it gets to our center. Well, actually, 911 center is doing that now also. But we also implemented quick response vehicles. So you'll see some of our SUVs going around. Prior to the pandemic, we only had one of those on the road every shift. Now we can go up to 4, and there's always a paramedic in it, and they can intercede on cases both very low priority, I've fallen and I can't get up, that medic can do it and keeps the ambulance available. Or very high priority, hey, we got a cardiac arrest, and the closest ambulance is a BLS ambulance, patient calls for it. So the paramedic will rendezvous at the scene with the crew, jump in the ambulance for the transport, and the other EMT drives the QRV to the hospital, so keeping everybody in service as fast as quickly as possible. That has worked splendidly. The other thing that you have helped with, and you deserve a lot of credit for it because it's really, really working well, is the behavioral health unit that Commissioner Stone has championed. So we run that SUV 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're averaging 10 to 11 patient contacts every day. So 77 people a week are not going to the EDs and clogging them up and having to be observed for 72 hours, taking up bed space when they don't even have the right kind of care available. They need to be in a specialty facility, or they're calling 911 because, like you said before, they don't have any other options or alternatives and they don't know what to do. So that unit has been wonderfully successful, and I'll just gently remind you that the funding runs out at the end of June. And so it's funded by ARPA. So we want to keep it going because it's really taken a lot of burden
We
off
have
the
some
EMTs
work
and
to
medics.
do. Jackie?
Everybody always asks for money, right?
These budget issues.
And what I had in my notes here, that the county did help us with ARPA money and we were able to hire a bunch of EMTs with that. And we're trying to hire locally, but thanks to our partnership and when you increased our subsidy back in September, we raised our pay rates. Now we've got people coming in from out of state. So we're recruiting on Facebook, we're recruiting, you might have seen our billboards around the county in the past. Now we're doing pop-up ads on Hulu in the states that are getting all the snow in the Midwest right now, trying to lure people in. So, and they're coming. We've got 24 people in the pipeline right now. And 7 of those are paramedics, And 12 of those, somebody said something about technical schools, I think. We signed a contract with Savannah Chatham Public School System, and we are now sending one of our educators every day over to Beach High School, and she's conducting an emergency medical responder class for the students at Beach. When they get done with that, and they're 18, we're gonna escort them right into our EMT program at our company and give them a career. So we've done an awful lot of local hiring to get people into the pipeline and keep them going. So we do have a policy in the areas of opportunity that if the hospitals are jammed up and 911 calls are holding and we don't have ambulances available because they're being held, like last weekend, that we will take the patient, put them out in the waiting room if they're able to. We're going to tell the nurse they're in the waiting room, give them a copy of their run report, and we got to go. There's calls that have to be run. And the hospitals don't see that. I mean, they understand it, but when they're overrun, the people in the ED are just like, they're seeing this. They're not seeing all of this, like you do as commissioners. So under federal law, once the patient is on the hospital property under NPALA, it's the hospital's patient. And that's why when we help as much as we can, but we got to say stop at some point when it gets bad. So another thing, the ARPA grants were great. The Medicaid base rate for transporting patients, so that's the state pays for underprivileged people, has not been increased since 2006. So I'm a little snarky when I say, have your expenses gone up since 2006? Ours certainly have, but Medicaid has failed to keep up with the economy. Another thing that could help us, we have 3 alternative destinations. We've got Gateway for behavioral health people, and we can take them straight there in that new SUV. If they're mobile, they don't even need an ambulance. We'll drive them, or a police officer will drive them. We've got J.C. Lewis and Curtis V. Cooper. We can actually unload ambulance patients there. The challenge with that is nobody wants to go there. We can't take them to a place against their will. So what we need is a hospital on the west side of the county or a freestanding ED. The health system is already overwhelmed for emergency care. We can't wait for Monday. We need something where we can drop patients in Pooler. St. Joe's has that hospital out there, but it doesn't take ambulance patients. It takes walk-in clinic patients. And that's a political issue at the hospital. We've been begging them for years about that. So now I'm going to flip to step 5, and you should have this placard in your package also. This talks about the prioritization and how the ambulances will respond to your call. If it's a life-threatening emergency, we drop everything, lights and sirens, and exceed the speed limits and everything else to get to you. If it's a lesser priority, and I will tell you that there was a state legislator who complained to you, and we got the call as priority 2, so we didn't turn on the lights and siren, and the legislator was concerned that it took so long for us to get there. There was a police officer on scene. He called our dispatch center and said, hey guys, step this up. And so we did. We turned on the lights and sirens. We also requested 911 send the fire department, and it all worked out just fine. It was a no lights, no sirens transport to the hospital. There was
on that point, and maybe Diane, we have quality assurance at the center, and so whenever we get a complaint, if we know the date, the time, where the call came from, we can go back and pull the records on those calls and see how long that call really took. And they're recorded, so they're able to go through the protocols and look and make sure all the protocols were followed, that they categorize those calls as you see on that sheet, and then gave that information out to EMS.
Emergency vehicle responses with lights and sirens cause a lot of what we call wake effect accidents. It makes no sense to be running lights and sirens for a kid with a twisted knee on a soccer field. We'll get there when we get there. But if we are going to that call, you see under the picture on the slide, it could be up to 45 minutes. And where the ambulance is within, I don't know, half mile, whatever, of a new critical call, a priority 1 that's come in, we're going to divert that resource to the more critical patient. So those people could be waiting longer, but they're low priority and not in danger of getting any worse with their medical condition. So you can see the challenges. I don't have to tell anybody, Commissioner Kicklighter already wants I-16 to be 8 lanes instead of 6. We're with you. We can't go westbound after 4 p.m. or even 3:30 some afternoon to get out that way. So, you know, again, the growth is crazy. So what we've been doing with the paramedic QRVs and the BLS ambulances and the behavioral health unit is sending the right resource to the call the right way. And that's determined at the 911 center when they're interrogating the call. It sounds like a rough word, but that's really what you're doing. You're asking them questions, following an algorithm, so you can't even vary the wording. And you click a button for yes or no, the next question pops up. So it's been around for years. I hate to tell you, in 1985, I was being dispatched on that system down in Florida, so when I was a young medic. But it works very well. You may hear things about the ambulances out at Fort Pulaski. That was an agreement that I made with the city manager prior to Sean Gillen. Diane
Schleicher?
Yeah, I don't even want to try her name, but she arranged with Fort Pulaski that when the ambulance system was getting stressed, hospitals are holding whatever, that we could post there instead of being actually on Tybee Island, which is only a 30-second drive from where they post. And we can get all the way to the far end of Tybee within the required response time if we're at Pulaski. But we can also come back to Wilmington and the other islands, because in the zone, we're required to cover all of those islands with the ambulances that we have out there. And we also have some on the mainland on Highway 80 at that station. So I think, you know, thanks to the subsidy, we've been able to increase the wages. We're really looking forward to the Beach High School kids, you know, being able to choose us for a career and join in. There might be something that you could do with 911 over there. I'm no expert in that, but staffing is getting much better. And the only other thing I would say to you, Commissioner, as you were asking the question, we've also seen an anomaly in the workforce where people don't want to work full-time anymore. So in 2019, we had 53 full-time paramedics, and we have 41 full-time paramedics today. So we're down 12. The part-time paramedics in 2019 were 15. There's 29 of them today. They just want to work when they want to work. So we're hiring many more part-timers. Same thing is happening with the EMTs. It's a different work ethic than how I grew up. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Do y'all have, I mean, I guess I'm supposed to be it. Do y'all have any questions? Any more questions?
I'm gonna let it go. We need to all have a conversation.
So we have a little bit more. Can y'all stay a few more minutes? Done?
Is there something
Are we
pressing?
executive session?
At 11:30.
We're going into executive session or something?
Thank you for your time. I have to go because my board meets at 4 o'clock. And I have to be
Thank you.
I mean, thank you all for your
Oh, yeah.
time.
I'll see you soon.
All right, so the next slide, just go through those real quick.
The next piece is where Zach's.
Okay, so Zach Schuman, he's given you a lot of background here about the state laws and regulations around EMS and the zones, and we just want to make you aware with EMS, this isn't really a 911 issue, it's the EMS issue, but that the county operates in zones. Our zones are zones 3 and 4, and Chatham Emergency Services holds the license in zones 1 and 2, correct? And now to change those zones, what would have to happen?
You basically have to petition the regional EMS council to change those zones, and that has to be approved at the state director of the Department of Public Health.
We can just do a contract?
Well, there are some.
I'm joking. That was based off of.
But there are some legislative efforts going on at the state level around zones and municipalities possibly having their own EMS, which would break that kind of licensure. So you may be hearing about that as you go to ACCG, as we go to the Capitol. We need to kind of keep our ears to the ground on that.
May I make one comment? We're short of paramedics now. If 1,500 more entities are allowed to start hiring paramedics, it's going to make it a disaster. And counties in unincorporated areas are going to wind up with higher expenses for coverage.
This slide shows you the EMS Advisory Council and some of the membership that's in that council. This group meets every 2 weeks?
Once a month.
Once a month. And we have the ER doctor from St. Joseph in that, and he, Dr. Kenny?
Dr. Jeff Kenny.
Jeff Kenny, and he actually runs that council. And then the hospitals participate as well as the ambulance providers and trying to have solutions for some of these issues. Zach, anything else on that side?
Yeah, the purpose of that council is basically to kind of provide oversight and a seamless system for the emergency medical services system that includes hospitals and everyone that's involved. And it's also an advisory body. So if you have issues, concerns, questions, and need subject matter experts, then the advisory council can advise you on issues that impact our medical services system.
And that wall time issue is really big here. We get a lot of great statistics out of our 911 system that are used by the advisory council.
Just to throw something out there, a friend of mine who works in an emergency department said, Memorial HCA, they did really well this year. They could hire a nurse to monitor and take care of the people and release the paramedics. The second thing is people that are getting dismissed from the hospital and are waiting for transport could be centrally located in a room. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're ready to go, but they just don't have their transport. And we need to encourage Memorial to look at those two options.
They have actually hired paramedics to take our patients from us.
Okay.
Yay, that's great.
And how does that work at the nursing home when they transport people from the nursing home and back?
Those are planned transports.
Yeah, so we used to be in that business, but because we lost so many people during the pandemic, we backed out of the non-emergency discharge transports and the long-distance transports, and those were really good revenue sources for us. But we made the conscious decision, we've got to focus on the 911 with the resources we have left. So that's handled by other companies in the county.
I will add one thing that we're finding is a problem right now. This is not Chatham EMS, but we're getting requests for non-emergent transports between hospital facilities, mainly like the BHCC, so some of the other facilities that they're diverting to for medical clearance. And so we are exploring what Grady's done with use of Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Linda, is there anything else?
Kelvin, he's been waiting patiently. Do you want to make a comment, just give us an update on some of the things?
Well, basically, we just, if you would, we just handed out a handout. The front sheet is where we can use your assistance in taking us to the next steps. We're working on the technology and working on things to help reduce the call volume and things of this nature. But if you can take a look at some of these and see where you think you can give us some help in getting some things done, that would be greatly appreciated. So we can talk more about these things later, but this is where we really need some help, especially getting that regional training center located in this area. That would be a great help for us.
I've got a question on that. The 6 full-time non-emergency call center leads would they fall under your operation or 911?
They'll fall under me. And that new call center will actually be responsible for all the non-emergency calls. And we're going to follow a lot of the protocols. There's still like 140 to 160 hours of training that these people will go through. So that's why we're trying to get the qualified people in here, one of those full-time, because it's quite an investment in training. So it doesn't make sense for us to use temporary staff. But we're also going to leverage temporary staff to get this up. So you want the phones answered, we got to get the non-emergency calls out of the center.
All right, well, let's get a short non-emergency number.
Yeah, who do we, how do
Yeah,
we
I
do
mean,
that?
that's, if the city can do it, we can.
311. It would be like 311. If you look on page 19 of that packet that you got, it's going to show you through November the volume in the 911 center of 290,000 calls. The admin calls were 165,573, so that's, half of the calls basically are admin. We have false alarm calls, and I think those alarm calls are now going automatically to dispatch, right? So the operators are picking them up in dispatch, not saying 6,500 numbers.
Right.
And then we have, so 200, I'm sorry, I read it wrong, 290,000 911 calls, and the total calls are 523,000. So we'll see that on that chart.
Make an official request for a 611 or a 3-digit non-emergency number. Because I've been told not only do we have a 7-digit number that's hard for people to remember, but I've been told sometimes it's not answered.
So this gets into the discussion about, can we do something that's more automated to route the non-emergency calls away from the center to where those calls need to go, and that's something we're exploring. But that's there are a lot of staff answering those non-emergency calls, and we need to free that staff up, right, so that they can deal with it.
Because right now, the same people, the call takers answer the 911 calls and the non-emergency. So by freeing up those people from answering the non-emergency calls, they should be able to answer more.
Get a number that people can remember. Very simple.
And transfer them from 911 to the non-emergency number immediately, and it'll be up your operator for real emergency.
And the way our system works, we can kind of track an hour around that. So this is something you're going to be hearing about in budget, just so you know.
All right, Linda, is there anything else?
Anything else from anybody?
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much for participating in this. And thank you, staff, for being here, and the people that run our 911 center and our emergency department. Meeting adjourned. Unless y'all want to stay.
So.
See you tomorrow.